Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? How you doing? How you doing? Welcome back. This is the post Baltimore Comic Con, a Stoked podcast. I am Javon Stokes, owner of Visually Stoked Media, as well as host of the Stoked podcast and creator of Heat and Strong, writer, artist, and I am one tired creator. Uh, just my little real small recap. Baltimore Comic Con was great. It was especially a great networking event. Sold some books, met some new people, met some old people, not literal old, but old friends. But it was great. It was great. To the people that I saw, it was a pleasure seeing you. The people I didn't get to see, next time, I promise. But yeah, it's really good. But before I get into that, we got a great guest. He's got a lot to say, and I want to get him in here as soon as possible. But two things. First, shout out to Mike Watson. Thank you for finally getting my Emerald Quest from my Kickstarter. Boom, boom, 1 through 3. As you can see, it's still in the plastic. I'm a busy man. I have not read it yet. I'm gonna. I promise. And everybody else who I got a Kickstarter from, I'm so sorry. I got them. I just ain't read them yet. I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna get them. And then number 2. I think I showed this. I don't know if I showed this last week. So this is the trade. All right, y'all. The first 3 issues of Heat plus the graphic novel. This is 150 pages. It debuted at Baltimore Comic Con, and it did very well. And if you want to get it, please, you can go to. Not please, you can't get it, but please, you can go to visuallystoked.com. You can pick this bad boy up. To everybody who did the Strong Kickstarter, I'm just letting you know your books are coming. I just sent out a gaggle of them. If you filled out the survey, you're getting them soon. I apologize for the delay. I'm trying to get everything out as fast as possible. Okay, all right. We got the preliminaries done. We got a celebrity here, so we don't want to hold him in the green room too long. All right, let me pull up the flowery introduction. Y'all gotta bear with me. I just got home from taking my son swimming, so he had a good time. My son is probably gonna end up being a better swimmer than I am. All right, here we go. For tonight's guest, I literally heard his moniker of the hardest working man in comics before I even knew his real name. He's widely known and well regarded in the comic book industry as an incredible writer, as well as a panel moderator of a multitude of comic book conventions and events. He's the owner of Vantage House Imprint and publishes quite a few incredibly creative books, including The Samaritan, Origins Unknown, and The Trouble with Love. Let's give a Stoked podcast round of applause for the incomparable Victor Dandridge Jr.
Thank you for that one. That was a glowing intro. You did. Like I gotta live up to that now. I gotta step my game up. Actually,
hey man, I'm auditioning to do panels now, so I gotta get this right.
There it is. That was solid. It's a good benchmark right there. I like it.
Appreciate it. Well, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Absolute pleasure.
So I want everybody to know I've been trying to get this man on the show for a minute, but he's busy.
I do a little.
Man, you can't have the moniker and not live up to it. Man. You gotta you can't be humble. You can't call yourself the hardest working man in comics.
Try to be like
and be humble. I do a little bit.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Actually, that's one of my favorite stories. Actually, the first person to ever challenge me on that name is the late great Neil Adams. And
wow.
For Neil to let me slide with that one, then I'm like, who can argue with me? Nobody can argue if Neil says it's cool, then it's cool. So
hey, shout out to his daughters. I got to I was hanging with them this weekend.
That's what's up.
Vera, right? Is it Vera?
Yes.
Vera. Is it Vera?
Wait, hold on.
It's Veera, right? Did I call him?
I don't know if I've ever actually met his daughter.
No, I probably got it wrong. I know I got it wrong, and if I got it wrong, I'm sorry. But seeing how it's spelled in my head,
Gotcha.
So, but anyway, she was very accommodating. Showed me around,
awesome.
BarCon a little bit.
Love it.
I appreciate her for that.
That's awesome.
But yeah, also if Neil Adams gave you the seal of approval,
I mean, now I had to finagle, I had to use, my silver tongue a little bit because what happened was we were at this is back in the day, Wizard World Chicago, and I had my first banner that actually said Victor Dandridge, hardest working man in comics on it. He's walking by and he stops and he looks at it, and I'm like, uh-oh, here it comes. And he comes over and he's like, I don't know that you get to be the hardest working man in comics. I think I'm the hardest working man in comics. And I said, no, Neil, you're the best working man in comics. There's a difference. And he stopped and he goes, I like that. All right, you continue doing what you're doing. I was like, there it is.
Okay,
there
that's
it
nice.
is.
You get the seal of approval there. I keep telling people I'm gonna steal that title. I'm not even joking with you.
I'm gonna tell you right now. If I give you my workload, you're more than welcome to take your shot. But the workload itself is one where you go, I'm not doing that.
but you might be you travel.
I do travel.
You might be the hardest working.
Listen, I travel and still have to do the work. That's the thing. that's the trick, because I'm a one-man show in a lot So
hey, listen, we go get into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
For those who watch my show, they know I like to, get people to see a different side of folks and get to know their journey and everything. But at this time, normally I'll be like, when did you fall in love with comics? But your bio says that the Death of Superman storyline is what brought you in. You want to expand on that?
Absolutely. So big shout out to this life-changing event for me, which actually hits 30 years next Tuesday. How crazy is that? It's been 30 years since this came in. But I was a kid that didn't like to read. I hated books. You couldn't pay me to read a book because books were evil of the devil. They were boring. I never found anything that was interesting. But as a kid of the 80s, pop culture, movies, cartoons, everything like that, I was all about that. And so I had a very clear understanding of who Superman was. Everybody knows who Superman is. It's Americana. Like, you're born knowing that. And so I'm watching the news at 10 years old, because I would do that. And they announced that Superman's going to die. And I'm like, what? Superman's going to die? Well, I want to read that. Like, that sounds interesting. Like, how do you kill Superman? I want to read that. And my mom literally heard that. Like, she was in the kitchen doing her thing, and she heard me say this, and she's busting out of the kitchen. Like, what was that? What'd you say? And I'm like, I want to read that. She's like, okay, all right. And literally comes home the next day with a stack of comic books. None of it's Death of Superman. I had no idea, what announcements were like and solicitations in the time frame in between. But she brought me a stack of books and gave them to me. Boom, read these. And I'm like, yes, ma'am. And 2 hours later, my only understanding of books was getting them from the library and you give them back. So I'm trying to give her these books back. She's like, there's no way you read these. Like, get out of here. Like, you can barely read. Like, I don't believe you. And I'm like, no, I read these. And so, that was the life-changing situation. They announced Death of Superman. It hit that pop cultural bell for me. And I'm like, I want to read that. And off to the races. Wow. I'm a reader now, and I'm interested in these characters, and I want to know about them, and I'm taking these comics with me everywhere. And I go over to my dad's house for the weekend, and he's like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, I got some comics. So I was like, they're comic books. Do you know what comic books are? And he's like, do I know what comic books are? And I find out that my dad was a huge comic book fan. I had no idea. His brothers could draw, and they were huge comic book fans. Like, it opened up a whole new side of my family that I had no real knowledge of up front. I had 3 uncles that could draw. The youngest of the uncles, my Uncle Mark, he was the one that was like, hey, we're gonna teach you how to do this stuff. And I'm like, sweet, like, let's make characters and let's do this. And he was the one that was kind of like, when we were growing up in the 60s and 70s, and we loved these comics, in order to do them, you had to live in New York. Well, we're in Columbus, Ohio. We're not going to New York. That's not practical. That's not going to happen for us. But you will figure this out. We're going to make sure that you get to do this. And so I'm like, okay, I'm for it. I'm with it. That's it. Let's go. And after barely a year of, learning my uncles can draw, being a part of the comic industry, reading it, or being a part of the comics readership community, getting books and stuff like that, my Uncle Mark was a victim of violent crime.
Oh, no.
And he died. And I had my Bruce Wayne, Peter Parker, moment, this vow by candlelight from my beloved uncle who believed in me so hardcore that I said that I'm going to make something of myself in this business in honor of him. And that was at 11 years old. And that's what's guided me since. So 30 years now, I've been pushed, by hand from on high, just kind of being like, no, try this, do this, explore, see what you can be. And here I am today, hardest working man in comics.
I'm gonna need you to stop calling yourself that. No, I'm just playing.
Just wait till I start to describe what it is, man. You'll be
I know. We gonna get there. It's funny. It's funny. Because you and I kind of share similar origin stories.
Okay.
I learned how to. I've told this story before, but when it came, comics helped me learn how to read better at a higher level.
Okay.
Because and I tell the story at the time, like I would read something and I didn't know what the word was, and then I'd be like, "Mom, what is that? What does this mean?" She'd be like, "Go to the dictionary."
Hey, so that's classic answer.
Right. So I'd be reading books and then I'd go back and forth. But also I found out my dad collected them.
Oh wow.
And he actually, so my dad gave me an issue of and I think I just told this story last week, Uncanny X-Men 137, The Death of Phoenix.
Yeah.
In pristine condition.
Like he just was like, here, look at this. Wow.
He gave it to me and I wore that out. And it wasn't, and I was too young to realize the value of comics.
Right.
But when I got older,
you're like, what did I do?
Yeah, well, I started reading Wizard Wizard magazine, and then in the back they had the
price guide, man. What?
Bruh, I looked at I was like, and I looked back at, and I still had it, but it was I was like, oh.
What did I do?
I have it somewhere. I still have it somewhere.
That's awesome.
In my house, in one of the tubs in my basement.
I love it.
But yeah, knowing my dad, my dad is actually from Dayton, Ohio.
Right.
So knowing he was kind of in the comics, I guess it spiritually made me feel a little closer to him.
Of course.
Plus, he told me he had a crate of comics, very expensive ones that they were supposed to be for me.
Okay.
And then, but then my grandmother sold them. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But then my cousin Jamari, who does the show, shout out Jamari, get better. He said he's got the flu. But he told me there's still a comic.
There's still a grandma
somewhere.
So no, baby, I sold those. I mean, she's got Wizard magazine.
Yeah,
she's looking at it
I'm going to get I'm going to get my birthright. But so you got in via Death of Superman.
Yes.
Tell me some of the other titles that you like growing up.
Well, you got to remember, this is circa 92, right? So one of the biggest pivotal years of comic history is right then. So you're talking in the aftermath of X-Men #1 with Jim Lee and Chris Claremont, still record-breaking 8 million units sold. You're talking the following year, the creation of Image Comics, which again changed the game. So me coming into comics at that standpoint was perfection. We had X-Men animated series, Batman animated series. So I was getting a wide range of all kinds of stuff because it wasn't just a matter of stuff that I was finding. It were recommendations from my uncles who were into Thor and Silver Surfer. And they're like, you got to read this. And if you know who Silver Surfer is, then you got to know about Fantastic Four because that's how you get there. And so I got a ton of books. I wasn't picky. It wasn't a matter of being Marvel or DC. It was here's stuff.
Here's books.
Here's books. Just
throwing books at you.
No joke. One of the biggest moments of my creative career was getting to meet Todd Johnson, the co-creator and writer of the book Tribe. And
I got that book.
Right? I actually had I can't think of the name of the
Is
magazine.
He black?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I assumed.
Yeah. He just lives up in Detroit. It's crazy. I didn't know that at the time. My uncle actually met Todd somewhere. I think he went to a convention or something like that. Got this magazine signed by Todd. And I think Larry signed it too. And they were like Tribe. And so they got me the first issues of Tribe. And what is it? The Ebony Warrior. I got all kinds of stuff from different,
Wow.
avenues of comicdom. And so it wasn't necessarily about being picky yet. The actual first time that I got picky when it came to books was Milestone. I was not a Milestone fan, which I know as a Black creator, that's like, oh God. But here's the context though. And this is always important for me to explain to people.
I'm listening.
The neighborhood that I grew up in had rampant gang culture, and Bloods were not a viable gang representation in my neighborhood. So to walk around with a comic called Blood Syndicate was bad news. And the idea of it being one of the foundational titles of Milestone always bothered me, because this was an aspect of life that I was trying to get away from, and I didn't want that in my comics. Like, that's not, I was trying to get away from that. I didn't want that here. So that always bothered me, that even the crux of what Milestone's universe kicked off with was ruled a gang war. I don't want that. I don't want any parts of that. All due respect to everybody involved, but that was always like a hard, fast place for me where I was like, no, I'm not that Black kid. So that I don't want that to be the only thing that speaks for me, aiming to speak to me. Like,
I got
that
you.
wasn't my chance. So yeah,
I got you. Like, for me, Milestone, it wasn't even about the content.
I get that.
It was more just, wait, Black people made this?
Black people made that. Yeah.
And it was like, I knew they were Black people in the industry. Like, I think I knew at the time that Christopher Priest was Black. Apparently MD Bright is Black. I'm shocked at this information. We just figured this out like a month ago, two ago. I forgot I had on the show, but like, I thought he was a white guy.
Yeah.
But like when I found out he was, I was like, oh, okay. But
you're like, oh,
right. So,
because we're out here.
Yeah, like, it's just so different than like Milestone to me was like, I think Milestone for me was the first time I realized that I can do this. And it's funny, your response to Milestone is different than every other Black creator I've had on this
very much
show.
So. Very like I say it like with
but it makes sense.
No, well, it's a different place.
It's
a different vibe. And when I explain it, people are like, oh, I never looked at it like that. But in all intents and purposes, even on the cover of Blood Syndicate #1, that hand sign, that is an actual gang hand sign. So me being in the neighborhood that I grew up in, I had to know that and look at that and go, oh, no. Like, I can't, like, this is a no-go here, because this is dangerous for me to walk around with. Like,
no, that makes total sense. That makes sense. So, but I was never really even a bit, like, as much as I love Milestone, Blood Syndicate, that was probably my least favorite one.
I get that. I definitely get that.
I like everybody else, Static and Icon were like, and then Hardware came in after that. But Hardware I love more for the art.
Okay.
But I actually like Hardware now a little bit more than I did back then. Like, the older me likes it more.
I mean, because Hardware was a mature title.
It
like,
was
the idea of corporate espionage and all that. Yeah, like that.
But even like glass ceilings and everything like that. I mean, I was 13 when Milestone came out, 12, 13 when Milestone came out. So I didn't really, like, I didn't see it like that. I get that. I didn't get that. But like Static was like, and I was like it for me.
Oh yeah.
And to the point where
that makes sense though, because Static, based on the age of the readers, he was us. He was
absolutely. So even Heat is like, if you see my first cover is holding up the fist, it's very much a riff on Static. Even the name Heat, like, everything is kind of like a riff on it. But that honestly, that's interesting. I never even thought, especially because I'm from Connecticut and there was gang violence here, like, for real. And I had never even thought about it that way. Never even thought about it that way. I'm like you. Like, even my stuff isn't like hood, because I didn't grow up hood. Like, that's the thing. Like, I grew up near the hood.
Right. But I was close enough to it. I was, childhood friends with guys that definitely got into the mix of some stuff. And, part of the irony, of course, was like that was where I lived with my mom. Now, the true irony is where my dad lived was blood gang territory. So I would have been fine over there, but I'm not there all the time. So I can't have, my everyday childhood pastime be something that is only cool on the weekends if I'm at my dad's.
Right.
That doesn't work. So
Right.
Almost as a sense of survival, especially considering that the idea of blurs, black nerds, wasn't popular or pervasive at the time either. So I'm already on the peripheral being into comics and not into basketball, football, hip hop like that. So I'm already on the outside. And to then have something that is overtly pointing at a rival gang culture, that's straight up target and wasn't for me. So I stayed away from Milestone just in case like a Blood Syndicate person showed up. Nope, you're not gonna catch me with that one. And so it was always that thing for me where the closest to identifying with Black comics culture at the time was the minimal support. And I only said it because they didn't come out with a lot of books. Ebony Warrior, Tribe, those were the ones that it was a little different because they weren't quite so they weren't gang related at all. And that was the thing that I could comfortably lean on. So and then of course that just kind of opened up the connections of things. So me seeing Tribe and Larry Stroman's work led me into X Factor and his work on that with Peter David. And so like everything just kind of tied into this thing of not limiting myself strictly to Black comics, but to all comics, because I saw different people pop up in different, places and spaces in that supportive creative kind of move. So that's kind of where that worked for me.
Yeah. Before I go on, it's funny you bring up Larry Stroman. I remember it blew my mind when I found out he was Black. it blew my mind when I found out so many, and I got to thank Wizard Comics for this.
Oh man, absolutely.
Wizard made me feel like I wasn't like alone.
I get that.
If that makes you like you saying like there's no blurred culture, it's hilarious now because blurred culture, social media has allowed, in my opinion, and maybe I'm just looking at it from the outside in, but like social media has allowed like people to not feel alone,
right,
and be alone at the same time. But like as a blurred, you don't feel like you're the only one. Like when I was growing up,
we didn't know each other. We didn't know each other.
I would have never like nobody was talking about comic books. Like really, like I remember when my best friend, who I had known for like 5 years at the time, was like, "Yeah, I read comics." I was like, "You read comics?" What? And then like I went by his room, and he had like he just like dumped all these comics out, and I was just like, "Why have we not been talking about this? Why are we hiding this?" Like so it's funny. Like as I get older, and I see the comics culture become more and more, prevalent,
right?
As opposed to what it used to be, where like you had to be careful.
Oh man, you would be the weird dude. You like comics?
Yeah, like I got that a lot. Like, oh, he like comic books. I was like, yeah, man, I like comics. Leave me alone.
Right.
Like, so it's just, I feel like a lot of these people, I want to be like, man, y'all don't know how good you have it. Like,
y'all don't know, especially in certain areas, man. Because I have a buddy, Jean-Paul Deschamps. Big shout out to Jean-Paul, and we were talking about the idea of being ostracized for your love of geek stuff. And he's like, well, that never happened to me. I'm like, because you live in New York, like there's culture everywhere that no one's going to respond to you the same way that they do in Columbus, Ohio. And he was like, that is such a weird, but I can't argue statement. But I was like, yeah, where you are is such a haven for all kinds of different cultures. It's a huge melting pot. Here, no, if you were a comic book guy, but you weren't into basketball like that, or you weren't into football like that, or even baseball, you were kind of on the outskirts, and you just kind of did enough to keep your head down. Especially for me, like I was a skinny kid. Like I've got shoulders now. I did not have these when I was a kid. So, like I'm serious. Like I look like I played sports. I did not play sports. Like that is not what I did. I was the nerdy dude who drew, and that was it. So, that was the thing for me was, it was a very different culture. Very different culture. I'm so thankful for what it is now for my children. But it wasn't that for us.
Yeah, like my daughters are able to express themselves on a level that like they do cosplay and everything like
Right.
that. Like I can't even imagine cosplaying as a kid. Like
Right.
no, I know
Outside
people
of
like it
Halloween.
it's outside. Like Halloween at the time was like my favorite Halloween, favorite holiday because I could do all that stuff. But like as a kid, and then I'm gonna say this, and I love my black people, but back then we were not forgiving. We were not forgiving of the geek culture, man.
Right.
Like it's just amazing how far, especially like black people have come towards accepting, and I feel like we kind of hit a point of no return where we're fully in when Black Panther showed up.
Oh, absolutely.
When Black Panther came out, like I feel like every black person became a geek, and it was just like, this wholesale like transformation where like all the black people are now like
you're not wrong.
But like it like there was a time where like if I were telling people, hey, I'd make comic books, they'd be like,
okay. Oh, okay. Like in a newspaper, like yeah.
Right. And like now if I do really? Wow.
And you got a first issue with you? Let me get that right now.
Bet like people they just come. So it's I'm proud of how far we've come. But I do remember where it was.
Yes.
And so like I'm always like on edge. Like I'm always on edge.
I get that.
So now you're the hardest working man in comics, but you started somewhere. So what point? What was your like flashpoint that made you go? Well, you told us the flashpoint. You said it was your uncle who passed.
Yes.
But where was your jump on point?
So, and this is the part that always gets me in trouble because my cousin Imani Latif he's gonna see this and he's gonna dog me for it.
Imani's your cousin?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I used to steal his comics when I would go up to Toledo.
Shout out to Imani, man. I didn't know that was your kinfolk, man.
Yes. So I used to draw. That was part of my stuff. So I always wanted to be a comic book illustrator, penciler. That guided me through middle school, into high school. I actually went to an arts impact high school. I have certification in commercial art. Like that was my focus, was drawing. It wasn't until I got to college and went to Columbus College of Art and Design where I met Mike Watson. That's where my love of drawing stopped. And part of it was a confluence of things. I had abilities, but I definitely knew that I needed to be elevated. I needed to be challenged in order to get better. Because through high school, I was the best comic book guy, but that only goes so far. And I was fully aware of that. And I knew I wanted to be challenged to up my skills. CCAD was not the school that I wanted to go to, but through circumstances, life stuff happening, that's where I ended up. So
where'd you want to go? I'm just curious. Where'd you
Savannah College of Art and Design. SCAD is where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to SCAD. Yeah, absolutely wanted to go to SCAD. Yeah,
bro. If you think that you needed to up your game with it would have been a rude awakening, man.
Listen.
I'll tell you in a minute, but go ahead and finish your story.
So what was interesting, and I have to be careful because I know this person does follow a lot of the things that I do. There was a teacher there of a program. I'm trying to figure out how I can say this. He was a comic book arts teacher, right? And I showed him some of my sketches my freshman year. And what I was hoping for was, that pat on the shoulder, like, this is cute, but if you really want to know how to draw, wait till you get to my class and I will teach you how to do this, that, and like, I wanted him to tear me apart. Like, I wanted him to be like, you're trash, start all over. Like, I was looking for that because that was how I knew I was going to learn something. Mm-hmm. And instead, what I got was almost a fanish response of, oh my God, I can't wait for you to get in my class. You're really good. And I'm like, I'm not going to learn from you then. Like, I'm not going to learn anything from you because you're not going to challenge me by suggesting that I can do something better because I'm showing you, honestly, crap sketches. And you're not even being like, where are your sequential pages? How come you're not show me a comic book? Like, that's the level that I respond to people with now. Like, I'm telling people when they're showing me drawings, I'm like, that's cool. You want to make comics? Where's the sequential narrative? Show me your storytelling. Oh, well, I just did this stories. Well, then don't show me this. Show me what I'm asking you for, because that's what I knew I wanted. That's what I needed. And when I didn't get that, I also recognized that I didn't have that thing in me to find that skill set on my own. I needed that outside party to tell me that. So that's how I kind of knew like that I'm not really a penciler, because I'm not taking the time to develop that skill set on my own without that outside voice. If I need that, then that's not me. I have this ability, but that's not my lane. That's how I discovered writing. Like, I had come up with stories for years and years and years, but I had never considered myself a comic book writer until that moment in college happened. And I left CCAD, went to the Ohio State University, was aiming for a writer's, a bachelor's in English. And it was funny because like on the come around, I'll tell you something really funny. When Mike and I first met, we were cool, but we weren't tight. And to a point, we really didn't even like each other. Like, not really. When I left that school, like, we did not like each other. I'm gonna say it. Like, he's gonna probably come in and argue like that's not true. It is true. Virtually everybody in our what up, everybody in our like immediate fan group, like, or a tight friend circle, we did not get along with Mike initially. Like, that's all of our stories. Ren McKenzie, like, none of us got along with Mike. And I think it was a matter of all of us were trying to be top dogs, and there was a clash there. It happens.
He said that when he was on
true.
here. He said that it was a competition. Like, everybody was trying to
every time. But in a weird sort of way, it was a healthy competition because we all kind of figured out what we actually wanted by having someone to sharpen our steel against, which is great. For me, I was like, I'm not the artist guy. I'm going to come back and I'm going to go on the writing side. And so, like, literally, I came back around 2003. And I'm starting to talk to Mike a little bit more because I'm like, look, I see his potential. And if I'm going to be a writer and he's already an artist, well, we could be the next Stan and Jack. Like, let's go. And I got a hold of his script for I am hard to get along with. It's true. I am very hard to get along with. I'm brutal. I got a hold of his Hot Shot script of Hot Shot #1. And I was reading it. And mind you, Mike used to be super secretive about Hot Shot. Like, he wouldn't show people drawings of him. He wouldn't tell us anything. Like, I had to be at his house and like sneak and steal, like, oh, what's this notebook that you have? Oh, is this Hot Shot? I'm reading it. Like, I did that. And when I read it, I was like, yo, hey, this script is trash. This script is trash. Let me redo this. And he's like, what? And I was like, let me redo this. Let me take a crack at it. And he's like, all right, I guess. And so that was how I positioned myself to write the first couple of issues of Hot Shot and gave it back to him. And he's like, yeah, this is good. Like, this is
he had to be he had to hold that in. He had to hold that.
So you want to write Hot Shot? And I'm like, I guess I do. So that was kind of that place and space where I experienced what I thought I wanted. And I was very fortunate to have met a ton of amazing people. Big shout out to Brian Moss, who I did Oh Crazy and 40 Ounces of Death with. We met at CCAD, and that was a byproduct of knowing, Sophie Davis, who I went to high school with. Sophie was ahead of me and did crazy comic stuff, like just out the box thinking, and met Sophie like in high school. Sophie goes to CCAD, so kind of seeing that circle, I got to see more of an artsy side of comics and less superhero stuff, and just kind of being exposed to all kinds of different levels of it. So it was just this perfect, true hands-on education space for me. I wasn't learning this in class. This was where I learned it by being around my peers. And around 2004, I was like, you know what? Being in class is not where I need to be. I need to be actively on the scene making stuff. And that's kind of where that level came into play, where we started doing conventions together and stuff like that. So, it kind of has this very organic process of trying this, getting to a point where I'm not really going to grow in this space. Let's change up. Let's see what else we can do. And then keep moving forward from there.
Yeah, you probably saved yourself thousands of dollars not going.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
I tell people all the time, like, there's a lot of people who go to SCAD and they only care about doing like one type of art.
Yep.
And SCAD is like, I don't care about.
No, you're gonna do everything.
You got to do everything, but you would have gotten what that kick you in the butt
Yes.
that you're looking for. Like that definitely was there,
Yeah.
but like you said, like you got to be a self-starter as an artist, and it sounded like you were just like you were on the verge of
Right.
like you were seesawing. That's interesting. Your story about so Mike told me like other parts of that story,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
like other parts of it. So it's like you're filling in the cracks,
I'm
like
just, I mean, that's what we're here for. We're just here to sprinkle it all in, tell the
just
whole
sprinkle it
truth,
all in.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, make a
because
full
like,
picture, a full picture.
because like that, I'll tell everybody. I started writing Hot Shot. Um, we got up to, I think it was issue 4. I think it was issue 4 in the writing process, like not finished books, but just be writing. And I quit. And the reason why I quit was because there were other people that would pop in with different ideas. And Mike is really kind to people by not being like, hey, stay in your lane. This person is doing this thing. He's like, oh, that's cool. We'll think about it. And so for me, it was like you're inviting too many cooks in the kitchen. And if you really want to let other people play with your stuff, then I don't need to do this because I'm going to be in the way because I'm going to have a way that I want to do it. That's not what they're thinking. And if you're open to it, then let me get out of your way and let you play with whoever you want to play with. Because this isn't my character. I don't have the right to do that. I did, however, suggest like you should write your own book though, because this is your book and you should be more hands-on about where you want this book to go. Like that should be what you do. So to help him, I wrote a tutorial on how to write comics and what my perspective was for breaking down Hotshot, his ancillary characters, the plot, all of that stuff. And I gave it to him, and it ended up encompassing the first 5 issues of Hotshot. That's not. It wasn't even you create stuff when I did this. That's what makes it
I
so
know.
bad.
I thought it was really cool when I found that.
Thank you. So I give Mike this tutorial book, and I'm like, this should help you figure out how to write stuff. Don't use this story, but just kind of you'll see what I'm talking about. Man, this dude read this tutorial thing, and he's like, I'm using this, right? I'm like, no, you're not supposed to use this. You're supposed to be inspired and do your own thing. And he's like, listen, let me tell you what happened. He was working at a summer camp downtown Columbus, the Salesian Boys and Girls Club, and he was a camp counselor, and he had given this tutorial book to a young lady to hold, like while he was playing basketball. Because Mike used to be like fit and trim and playing basketball all the time. Like, don't look at Mike now and be like, oh, he's not a hooper. Mike used to be a hooper. Okay, he used to be a hooper. He has some handles and everything. Nice little jumper. But he gives it to this girl, this random girl. I don't even know who this girl is. Gives it to her, and she starts reading it. And she comes to him and is like, is this what comics are like? And he's like, yes. And she's like, do you have any more? And he's like, yeah. And so he starts bringing this girl comics, and he's calling me like, yo, you just made a non-comic book reader a fan with your story. We have to do this. Like, we have to do, like, your story is good enough to make a fan out of someone who doesn't read comics. You have to do this. So I'm like, all right, then I guess that's what we're doing. And
Awesome.
I wrote the first 6.5 of Hotshot.
Awesome. So
Yes.
what was your first book? Like
Me
your
personally?
creation? Yes.
So I hate this book. This book is called Omnibus. It's available on Indie Planet. You guys can get it right now to this day. It's a anthology of sorts. It's hodgepodge. It's me doing the art and writing. So you can see what I could do. Granted, this is quite a few years ago. This is like, it came out 2000, late 2009, early 2010, if I'm not mistaken. Matter of fact, that fits into my origin story in such a crazy way. So Mike and I we've been kicking butt under Freestyle Comics with Hotshot in the Central Ohio con circuit. We've been kind of known as the masters of self-promotion. We know how to make noise, come in and make our presence known. We were good at it. And there was a show here called Mid Ohio. This is before Wizard World bought it. And so it was Mid Ohio Comic Con. And like, no joke, some of the guys that we used to run with like hosted an indie comics panel in our hometown, but didn't invite us to be on this panel. And so I was kind of taken aback by it. Like, truthfully, if I can be honest about it, all these years later, I was pissed that you're in my hometown and you're not inviting me to be on this particular panel. That was a problem for
Right.
me. So I listened to the panel, and there were 2 distinct voices on there that were, in my opinion, overtly negative about the struggles of being in the business, how expensive it was, how difficult it was to do XYZ, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of irked me because it quieted everyone else on this panel that I knew had, decent thoughts, some good conversation pieces, people that I knew. But I'm like, all you guys are doing is promoting the hardship of being in comics. Like, why are you doing that? Like, why are you damning another generation to, following in the same footsteps that you guys did just because you weren't smart enough to figure something else out? Like, that was a problem for me. So I wrote an article that was featured on the site Comic Related. Unfortunately, it's defunct now, but I wrote an article basically calling them out, saying like, your perspective was trash because you were only telling people the worst parts of comics and not encouraging them to figure out how to think outside the box and figure out solutions to what you were talking about when these solutions actually exist. So there was a couple of, responses back and forth, early, we'll call it early internet beef. And like literally one of their moms literally got in there, was like, who are you to say this? And And I'm like, look, this is the truth that I'm speaking. And one of the creators was like, well, then prove it. Put your money where your mouth is and show us what you're talking about. And I'm like, that's the right response. There we go. Like, let's do that. So I picked a weekend. I think it was the weekend that G.I. Joe Retaliation came out. And I went to a local theater and I did sketches. Did a couple sketches for people. In a couple of hours, I raised $60. And I took that money and made this book Omnibus #1. And the whole point that I made was that you could make a comic and with one sale, it's immediately profitable. Like you can do that. And so I used Kablam / Indie Planet as my, print source. It was really pioneering at the time. And I did this book because it was paid for, like the physical copies were paid for with the sketches that I had done. Right. I went around to different comic shops locally, gave them free copies and was like, hey, if this sells, if somebody wants, more, you want some more from me, then let's talk price points. But I'm just giving this to you so you guys can make $15-20 or whatever off of this. Because I got I think it was with the $60 I raised, I got 20 copies. So I went to 4 different shops, gave them 5 books, and was like, here, whatever. Promoted as much as I knew how to at the time. And when I sold the first book, all the money that was my cut of it was immediate profit. And so technically, statistically, I actually made more money from that project than the oil industry did that year with its profit margins. Now, literally no, but statistically, yes. Yeah. It's a marketing statement, but
gotcha.
that was my very first solo, strictly by myself project, and it's called Omnibus. It's issue 1, still available on Indie Planet. They still have it up there. And again, I still cringe at it, but literally, it is the first place that you ever see an ad for the Samaritan series. It's the first place that you see an ad for the group or the book that becomes Wonders of the Weird and Beyond. That's coming out soon with Seth the Moose. This is all stuff that I did back then, and yeah, that was the first place that you ever saw an ad for it, was in Omnibus, and awesome. That was before Ren got involved. This was all me doing it at the time. So yeah, that was under my imprint. It was called WizWorld Inc., which was the imprint that I had created for myself when I was 13. And I literally had to change it because a local show promoter refused to let me exhibit because he thought that I was Wizard World. And I had to change my company name because he swore that I was Wizard World trying to come in and buy his show. And I'm like, no, I'm a creator. And they're like, no, you're not. So I had to change my company name. It was a shame.
Don't that suck? I went through so many names before I got to Visually Stoked, man. I was like, it was unique. It was I couldn't even use my own name.
Isn't that the worst?
I was just like, man, that's amazing, man. I appreciate you standing up for the culture.
Of course.
I mean, I'm actually really I'm jealous because you started way earlier than me. To maybe I think because you had so many people around you, pushing to get in the industry.
I was very fortunate with that.
I didn't know anybody here. Really? I didn't meet anybody who even cared about getting into comic books until I went to SCAT.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I
That's
didn't
crazy.
meet anybody who was like, I think, because even I think if I saw somebody else trying to do it, I
Yeah.
probably would have tried to do it earlier. I would have sucked,
But still, you would have tried
but
it.
still, I would have
Yeah.
tried to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I got to SCAD where I met people in classes, you know.
Wow.
So like
Well,
there was like no real comic book culture, like just for me. So like
I get that.
I'm actually really I'm envious that
Listen,
you met people that were
I'm gonna sprinkle just a little salt on that. Like, not
go
only did
ahead.
I meet them, like there are guys that are industry like icons that are from here. Like Daryl Banks,
I
the
heard.
co-creator of Kyle Rayner, is from
Right.
here, and I met him when I was 16. Like, so he was
Wow.
somebody that through my school, he had his art featured in a alumni piece because the comic book arts or the commercial arts teacher at the time was his former teacher at a different vocational center, and so she taught at my school at the time and had him showcase some of his work. So
Wow.
he had Superboy pages, Supergirl pages, and we used to just sit there and just look because everything else was all fine arts based, and he was the only comic book creator
Right.
that was showcased. And then come to find out he's black. Oh, I'm like, let's go. And to this day, Daryl is my art dad. Like, I call him dad, he calls me son. It was the funniest thing. I tell you what, that was the first time I ever flexed in front of other people, was when Daryl came to CCAD to talk, and I knew who he was. Like, clearly we had met before for years. And so we're, I'm sitting there in all of his conversations. And at one point he's like, well, when you are into it as long as Victor is, then you'll know. And everybody's looking like he knows who you are. And I'm just like, yeah, like, y'all don't know Daryl? Y'all don't know? Oh, that's just me? Oh, that's just me. Oh,
just
okay,
me.
well, cool.
Oh yeah, we just it's nothing.
Like that. It's so true.
Shout out to Daryl Banks, man. I fell in love with his Green Lantern art
Absolutely.
so fast.
Absolutely.
Like so fast. Because back then I wasn't as much of a writer head. Like,
Right.
I'm more of a writer head now than I'm an
I get
artist.
that. I get that.
Yeah, it's about equal now. It's about equal.
Okay.
But like back then it was like, if the art was slamming, I was reading.
That's all that mattered. That's all that
and
mattered. That's all that mattered.
Like his art was just like from the first book. Like, I literally picked up that Green Lantern because I was like, wow, this is amazing.
It's great. It's great.
And
Literally
because
great.
it looked nothing like anything else, anybody else, it had this really,
his draftsmanship is incredible.
Yeah, and the storytelling, but it had this look.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say realism, but it was realistic, cartoony.
Yes.
Like, I'm trying to find the right way to say
enough realism in his illustration.
Right.
Like, he's an illustrator. I think that's the biggest thing to understand is he's an illustrator, and he can apply sequential storytelling. So he took two different skills that he does really, really well and put them together. And that's the thing. Like, you're just like, wow. And yeah. Him and Ron together is just amazing.
I just met Ron Mars for the first time this weekend.
Did you?
Yeah, he's the one he was like, hey, he's the one that told me about Barcon. He's like, yeah, we're over at the Sheridan, because
Barcon is huge.
I'd spoken to him like briefly on like social media. By the way, social media is amazing.
Yes, it is.
Let's get into it. So
let's go.
We're both creators, right? And it's such, like, I can't even imagine, being a creator like in like the 80s and the 90s, especially an independent creator, because it looks so much more daunting than it does now.
Right.
Social media has like changed the game. Not even the internet. I'm just saying social media, because now you get to hear about all these projects that you otherwise would never hear about.
Fly right over your radar. You'd have no idea.
Yeah. So like how has social media like affected like your career?
Oh my God. On every level, because I mean, just in a sense of what we qualify as social media, right? So my very first solo book was born because of an argument I essentially had on a forum message board, that was what social media was for us at the
Yeah.
time. So without that interaction, I would not have created this first book to know that I have the acumen to create a book from start to finish. Like, I know how to do that. And all the things that I do with, you know, Vantage in-house today started from that conversation's output. So on a literal level, that was huge. The other thing was, it actually let us know in a funny, hilarious sort of way who was in our backyard that we didn't already know. So like, let's see, Mike and I were, let me put it like this. Myself and Danny Cooper is the editor-in-chief of Freestyle Comics now. We started a studio group called the CO, or the Company. And it was by design supposed to be a kind of a studio group that would allow other creators to get work and travel together, save money on all this stuff. And one of the ways that we were trying to get work initially was we were doing sketches at conventions and giving the money that we raised to what was called Actor at the time, but that's what Heroes Initiative became. It was called A Commitment to Our Roots. Like, that was its initial name. And we were doing sketches at the time. And all, like, we were like, I mean, any sketch that we got money for, that's what we did. We gave the money away. And that was kind of how we were supposed to grow. So by doing that, we were kind of like, well, I guess we got to figure out some more shows to go to. And so again, through this advent of, you know, social media being, at the time, it was website stuff, comic related, big shout out to them. We started finding out that there were other comic events in Central Ohio that we didn't do. We didn't know anything about them. If it wasn't Mid Ohio, Small Press and Alternative Comics Expo, or Space, or Wizard World Chicago, we didn't know about it. And so we find out that there's a show called Champion City that's in Springfield. We find out about Gem City. It was a community that now spanned Indiana, Kentucky, you know, Central Ohio, Cincy, a little bit of Cleveland, Akron. Like, we were starting to expand because this site gave us contacts in all these different places. And so we're like, oh snap, like, it's not just us. Like, we were thinking that we're in this bubble and we're the only guys. And you're like, nah, there's hubs here, there's hubs there, there's hubs here. Oh, well, let's pop, let's connect, let's do this, let's do that. And that's how we kind of grew in the short span of 2006 to 2009 is how we really kind of grew in that space, because that's how we interacted with most of these people, was through MySpace, through comics, comic related. Like, that's what we did. And it really kind of changed everything for us, because it showed us our community was bigger than we thought and gave us more people to connect with.
Yeah, I mean, even like just the publishing a comic book is so much easier now. Like, I remember, you know, back in, what was it? Jesus, 2004, 2005, when I did my crappy comic book, my first crappy independent comic book. I didn't know what to do for a publisher.
Right.
Like, I had no freaking idea. So I was working, and I've told this story before, but I was working at like this company. I was doing a what do you call it? A temp job.
Okay.
And I was in like this room, and the person in this room was the one that made all like copies for everybody. Like, you need a binder of everything like that. So I was just like, so she went out on, I'll never forget it. She was on vacation.
Right.
And like, it was me by myself. So I was like, I had this book that I had finished. So I bought my paper. So I didn't take their paper. I didn't steal their paper. But I printed out like 20 copies, 25 copies, and like use the glue, like you know what I'm talking about, that like thing where you fold it over. Of course. Yeah. And it like, and I bound it together, and that was my book. And it looked terrible. And but I would like walk around, and like I was just giving it to like I gave it to Jeff Johns. Okay. I gave it to Jim Lee. I literally. And I feels like such crap nowadays. But they had like, you've been to Comic-Con, you see where they got the long line for Jim Lee. Bruh, I cut the whole line.
Did you really?
And gave him my book. I was like, I know you got a line, bruh. I just want to give you my book.
I just want to give you my book.
And then I walked away. And I peace out. And I gave it to Axel Alonso,
Right.
And he stood and he was like, you need to work on this, you need to work on that, you need to work on this, you work whatever. But like I do, but like I knew at that time I wasn't taking it seriously. Gotcha. Because and I've had this discussion and I'd love to get in with you. But like I get a lot of people now because I've made a tiny name for myself. Like I'm doing okay, but like now people know that my work is on a little more professional level. They're always asking questions about how do I publish?
How do you get here?
Process, like how do I write and everything like that. And I can tell them how I do it, but like what advice would you give somebody that's trying to be to publish comic book?
So the first thing I tell everybody is to just do something, right? And the reason why I say that, just like you showed, you have to do something just so you can kind of put your foot, in the game, and then you can determine what you need to do from there. But if it's all just, in your head, one day I'm gonna do something, you're not even on the board. Like we're not even really paying attention to you to give you any sort of true credence, credentials, input, insight, observation, nothing. We can't really give you anything because you have nothing to show for your wants and desires. So no matter what it is, do something, right? If you come through.
No, I don't know what you missed.
So.
If you got a question, you could put. Hey, listen, if you got questions for Victor, shoot them over, and we'll definitely put them up. But go ahead, man.
So by doing something, you give yourself at least some barometer for growth. Like no matter what, even if it's the greatest thing ever. Okay, cool. Now you have a benchmark that I have to at least hit this from now on. However you do it is important to you, right? Because it has to be intuitive to you. It's got to be
another hour. Just ride with us, and then you could go back and rewatch.
Go back and watch.
You could go back and watch. But just ride with us. We'll be done. Everything is on YouTube, y'all.
There we go.
All live but recorded. I need to start putting that, man. How do I become the heart? Is that Danny?
We'll get into it. We'll get into it. We'll get into how. It probably is. So once you do this, look at what makes sense to you. If something was overtly difficult, maybe that's because that's not the most intuitive way for you to do it. And if it's not intuitive, then don't do it that way. That's the one beautiful thing about comics as a whole. There is not really one right way to do it. There's just a way that makes sense to you versus a way that makes sense to me versus a way that makes sense to this other person. So, and you have to look at things in terms of what is your context. If you're a writer, it's going to be different than if you're an artist. If you're a writer artist, it's going to be different than if you're just a writer or just an artist. So you have to look at those things as to what is your experiential, intuitive insight. What is it telling you as to how to do this? Because that's the thing about comics. It is probably one of the most innate art forms to ever exist. There is not one single way to do any part of it whatsoever. Do what makes sense to you and just do that to the best of your ability. And as long as your abilities are continually growing, then you're doing it right. That's the thing.
Yeah, I agree on that. Do something is probably the best piece of advice because number one, you learn way more about comics doing comics.
Yes, you do.
I mean, I even with my crappy comic book, I learned more about storytelling,
of course,
and I learned what not to do to figure out what to do.
Absolutely.
Not only that, but you also learn I realized that the subject nature of my first book, I don't think anybody was really interested in it then. You know what I mean? I really didn't. I'm gonna do that book eventually because I feel like it's come back around.
There you go.
No joke. There you go. I feel like I was not that I was ahead of my time, but I feel like what the story that I was telling then is probably more palatable now.
I got you.
I always tell people especially like you said, do something, but start small.
Yes, I always tell people start small.
Yeah, because
start small.
Do an
8-page book, 4-page book.
Bruh, let me tell you, I had this grand idea of doing an ongoing series when I started doing Heat. I was like, this is going to be an ongoing series. And, you know, I do everything on my book. I got to heat number 3. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I was burnt
Yes.
out.
That's hard.
Who is this? Should have made it then. It will be out now. Listen, shut up, man. It's Danny. It's probably Danny. It's got to be somebody who loves to annoy me. But yeah, I like once I realized the amount of work that went into it, it was like, yeah, this might let me rethink this, because it's a lot of work.
It is.
Depending on what you do, it's a lot of work. Especially, you know, if you're somebody like myself who's trying to wear many hats. I keep saying that y'all just writers, y'all get the easy part, man. Y'all write the script, give it off, and then
you think. I'll tell you
I write too, sir.
I'll tell you the difficulty with writing.
I'm listening.
This is the real difficulty with writing.
I'm listening.
Is when we put it down and we have it up here and we send it to you, and we have to wait and see.
Okay.
Did you get what we thought we put down? That's the hardest thing possible. So when it comes to like, and this is it's a funny conversation I've had many times over the years, when the idea is, yes, it can be super fast for me to write 1,000 zombies come over the hill. Absolutely. And it's going to take you a long time to draw 1,000 zombies coming over the hill. First of all, if you draw 1,000 zombies, I'm going to slap you, because ain't no way I'm going to sit there and count to be like, did you draw 1,000? I'm not doing that.
But, man, if I was an artist, I'm gonna slap you for saying
like, why you say 1,000? Like, it's a feeling. I want you to feel like
a lot of zombies.
But the idea is, as long as it takes you to draw it, there's so much anxiety for us on, are you capturing what this is for the story? And the thing is, like, it's almost like it's like losing weight. Right. So as you're drawing it, you're keenly aware that it's going to take you some time to draw this thing. And so you're into it and you're doing it. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're done. And it's a thing for you where you're like, oh, yeah, this slowly came about and this is what happened. I go from no visual to strictly visual. But the amount of time that it takes for you to get there is nothing but anxiety for me. It is literally waiting to see if you can do what it is that I have up here. And if you don't, is that my fault? Or is it your fault? It's a huge anxiety-inducing stupor that writers go through that people don't really understand from a writer's only perspective. That I'm trying to articulate something that's strictly up here with words and hope that you did that right.
You know, I think Greg Burnham said the same thing to me this weekend. He said pretty much the same thing. So I got you. For me, it's different because, and we'll answer this question in a second. Yeah. It's definitely the artist's fault.
Not always the artist's fault. Not always.
For me, it's like I have two brains.
Yes.
So I will write the script. I will write the script, and then I will pass it off to the art side of my brain.
Which is you, right?
Right, which is me, but it's a different mindset. And I will literally be mad at myself. I will put I'll put like huge cityscape, like. There's a if you read Heat #1, there's a double page spread of Heat flying above the city, and and I'm drawing it like,
you're over here like, why did you do this? Why did you do this?
Right,
I'm like, understand.
What am I? Why? You don't have to do this, Javon. But I'm like, but then the writer of me goes, but you really need to. So
you need this. It's for the story.
How do you know when you can trust an artist with your vision?
That's an interesting question. I think the first thing is, how do you know that your vision is proper for the artist that you're talking to? You know, are you looking at their work, or are you just looking at the fact that they can draw and therefore should draw your story? Are they the best person to draw your story? What is your story asking for? And how do you, like, that's how you know that you can trust them, because what your story is asking for, you already see their ability to produce.
Yeah, that's that's another thing on having an artist who has work.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like you gotta show me, hey, like I'm looking for artists right now for books, and I'm like, okay, you got samples. That's tough because like you can show me samples, but I have no idea how fast you work. I have no idea.
I have this conversation with people all the time where I'm like, you can show me this dope page. How long did it take you? Oh, 6 months. I cannot use you.
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
I can't use you.
Yeah,
I can't use you.
Hold on, let's see. Is it ever okay to haggle an artist's price?
Here's what I say.
I'm gonna let you handle that.
Here's what I say to that, because I think
I can tell you from an artist's point of view, but I'm gonna let the writer talk first.
This is my answer to this all the time. Don't haggle. It's not worth haggling. What you do is don't ask an artist what their rates are. You say, I have this much money to do this, yes or no. That's it. Either how much I have is worth it to you or it's not. Getting your page rate doesn't dictate how much money I have in my pocket. Already having in mind how much I'm willing to spend on a project, and you go, this is how much I got. You tell me what's good. If it's not, then I'll keep moving. Not a problem. I'm not wasting your time. You're not wasting mine. The moment you start asking for page rates, you're whittling down a concept and you're not thinking exponentially how much that actually is going to cost. Because you're telling me something, oh, it's going to be 130 a page. Oh, cool. That sounds doable until I do the math. And at 40 pages, that's now, oh, snap. I got to pay you over $4,000. I don't know if I can do that. So instead, figure out how much you're willing to spend on this thing. Go to the artist and say, I'll give you this much. Yes or no? No haggle necessary. It's literally like, you're not saying like, I don't think that you're worth it. You're saying, I only have this much. And more than anything, you're saying, am I worth this to you by putting this book out, sharing this credit, this duty or whatever, and you getting this much money? Is that worth it to you? Yes, no. If it's not, no harm, no foul. No harm, no foul. You'll find somebody. You just got to keep doing the work to find them, but never haggle. I don't haggle. No,
I mean, that makes sense. Sense. I only work for myself, so I don't haggle page rates with myself because I don't pay myself.
That's real.
But yeah, I mean, I would probably say when I do commission work for people, I always ask because I always ask, well, what's your budget?
It's easier that way.
And if they say, well, I have X amount of money allocated for this, I'm like, that's not going to fly.
Gotcha.
And then, or if I say, or I might even like the project enough that I might be willing to put in the work. So I'm with their, like, haggling is just, it's not bad. A car, it's man. Bad. It's not a car. Like these, people got to eat, man.
Now I disagree with that sentiment.
Well, when I say people got to eat, I mean, if I'm an artist and I'm like, my rate is $200 a page, right? And you say, well, I got $4,000, but you want, 32 pages or something like that.
Right.
It's up to me to be like you said, it's up to me to be like, do I do this or do I do that? And so, like, if I'm like, I got to eat and I can't afford to do this, then I'm not going to do it. But if I go, this looks like it could be a really good project. Okay. Now, what I will say is that, and I'll say this for writers, I feel like if you're a writer and you can't draw worth a damn and you want somebody to come in and exercise your vision, yeah, you pay them, but you also got to give them some of the credit as a co-creator.
Ooh, you get into sticky territory with that one.
But I'm saying that if you can't write worth a damn, draw worth a damn. Like if you can sketch out, if you could do a little bit of something, you've designed characters and you give me the designs and I'm working from your designs, that's different. But if you don't have anything, if you got nothing, and you're like, well, I think he should be like this, this, and this, but I draw it, and you're like, and I'm like, well, let me try something, and it becomes a collaborative process. Then you have to let go of some of that, and you're a co-creator at that point. That's my opinion. That is my philosophy. That is how I would work.
Here's the problem that creates for you. There's not a definitive line for when you cross that threshold into collaborator, co-creator based on what you've given.
But if you determine it, though.
You
If
can't.
you
though.
sit, yes, you can.
No,
because
no,
you
no,
can
no
just hold on. I'm gonna
No
say
one
this
can.
though. You well, if you just say if you have a contract, see this, I know that's Danny. Like I know that's Danny right there. Because he also asked the question about big cons being a scam, but I'm gonna
Here
give
we
your
go, yeah.
opinion on because I feel like if you just say I'm trying to think of if you okay, Victor and I are gonna do Victor, you come to me and I got Death Destructor 101.
Mhm.
And but you're like, I'm still working on the designs. I can't quite get it, but this is the
Mhm.
story, and I want you to work with me. And then I'm like, okay, cool. And you're like, well, these are the characters, but I don't really have the visuals. And
Mhm.
I'm like, all right, bet. And I'm designing the visuals plus environments and everything like that. Then if you just write a contract up and say, hey, listen, we will share the profits 50-50 because you came up with the concept, I came up with the designs, and we both work together on the story.
That is a very wonderful collaborative concept of what that process could look like.
That's what I'm saying. It should be
Very
like.
rare does it go to that space. And
I agree.
the reason why it typically doesn't is 50-50 might not be warranted. And the reason why I say that is this. The first image that we ever saw of Harry Potter was not from J.K. Rowling. Not at all. It was on the cover, right?
Right, the cover. Yeah.
Does that person get 50-50 credit for what they did? No. They don't get 50-50 credit for creating the image of Harry Potter. Not at all, right?
I'm not saying that that's the way it is. I'm
No,
saying
no,
that's the way it should be.
But what I'm saying is you would give that person, because they designed the visual output of Harry Potter where JK only described him in words, you would give that person 50% credit because they brought it to life visually.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would ever agree to that. Nobody.
I'm not saying that people, once again, I'm talking about from, well, see, saying an image is not a character, that doesn't fly though, because you can just say the King of Wakanda, T'Challa. Okay, but then we see T'Challa and it transcends it elevates the character. It elevates it from being just words. I know we disagree. That's all
Listen.
right.
No. I'm gonna say the specific idea of the literary context of something and the dismissal of its validity beyond it being a visual
No,
showcase.
not dismissal. The
But it almost has to
elevation.
be. No,
But it's an
that's still,
elevation, though.
but see
That's
what you're
not
calling is an
dismissing it.
elevation by standpoint should not require a 50% ownership, because all you're doing is elevating what I've already created. So if I've already created this thing, you can't elevate to 50% of what I've done because that makes it even.
Sorry, my wife was talking.
Like, listen. When the boss talks, you got to take a second. Yeah.
Don't do that, man.
I'm just keeping it a million. I'm keeping it a million.
You give her a title, man. And she go use that.
I'm
man.
just saying.
But my whole thing is, okay, you're right, but the image that we're seeing of Harry Potter is not what J.K. Rowling wrote. It's the first image we see, which is the book. But that's what everybody's dressing up like.
But again, the thing about that is, where did that imagery come from?
No, I get that.
The artist needed JK in order to get that point across. But everything that we see, and I probably even should be giving her that much conversation. But the idea is, from a literary standpoint, right? The reason why you don't want to put this in this context is not as a have to. I always am in favor of offering percentages, but never as a have to, because you have to be very careful by determining at what point does the artist match what the writer has matched. Like, it's very difficult to decide that. That has to be something. Go ahead.
But we're also using a book, which I think is a little different.
We can do it with a comic.
With a comic book, I'm trying to think of an example. A really good example of a comic book. Why the Last Man?
Okay.
Now they share 50-50 credit.
Right. But they did that up front.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. That's what I would, if somebody were to come to me and say,
I'll give you an example of one that I do that with.
Okay, go ahead.
So the Samaritan series.
Okay.
Ren McKenzie and I share 50-50 credit on the series.
Okay.
I have 100% credit on creating Smith, the character. Because like I told you guys before, I created Smith and he's featured in Omnibus #1, which came out 2010, solid year before I started working with Ren on the Samaritan series. So the visual concept of what he looks like, I drew it. It's been published. I have
But that's why I said that was different though. Because I said if you come to me with all the designs,
but I gave that to him. But I gave that 50-50 of the story to him.
Okay.
Because that's the thing, like I technically didn't have to do that. I had already established this character, but I gave it to him free for my own ends. Like that was part of what I wanted to do. Because my brother and I definitely want to do that. But to make that a mandate of 50% ownership just because, I would never say that. And the reason why is because what you will incite from very savvy writers is what they'll do first is they'll write it in prose, publish it in prose, and now what you're doing is an adaptation. And as an adaptation, I have already established all the characteristics visually of what a character looks like, even with just words. And now you are determined to get less, because when you put people in a position where you're like, if I draw your stuff, you should give me half. Then what I'll do is I'll put myself in a position where you are clearly only adapting what I've already written. And that will only garner you as an adaptational source, maybe 20%. So you actually, by pushing this sense of equality, would actually only encourage people to go, well, then I'll just write this first because I don't actually need the artist to get the story out. And that becomes the
line of demarcation.
And that becomes a dangerous thing, because now you'll get people that maybe use comics not as comic creators, but as jump ships to making movies and stuff, because I wrote this book, but in order to sell it to Hollywood, I'm going to get this comic made. So now we've demarcated our value as comic creators strictly on the strength of how you try to push how somebody should automatically give percentage context. Now, I'm not a fan of automatics. I'm always a fan of negotiating that end of it. I will never negotiate the money.
I didn't mean I feel like in a perfect world, in my opinion, but if you were asking, was really mostly talking about me.
I feel
like I've had people come to me and say, hey, I want you to work with me. And then like they got this idea, but they don't have anything else. And if I'm putting in the time doing design work and everything else to flourish out your idea, then I feel like I should be compensated with part of the creatorship. Now that's why I said it's different than if you came to me and when you were like, hey, I got all these designs and everything like that, and it's less work than I have to do.
But if I give you that creatorship, do you still want a commission rate on that?
I would take less money in that situation.
But you would still expect to get paid something, even at a 50% commission rate. But I don't get that as the writer. I don't get that as the writer. If we're 50-50, but you get paid, I get paid, right?
I mean,
so otherwise, then it can never be 50-50.
When you say commission rate, are you talking about like what we make off sales of the book?
No.
Or are we talking about
your page rate?
You need to pay me.
Right, your page rate.
What if that's a good choice. But once again, you're also coming to me to get work done.
Sure.
And
but once
I'd be taking less. I'd be taking less to do. The way I put it is, the way I look at it is you are providing the commission rate because you're coming to me to do work. So I'm a draftsman in that situation.
And you're not a 50-50 creator.
But I'm also, you can't be both.
You cannot be both.
How can you not be both?
Because then you're not 50-50. You can't be 50-50.
I am, though.
No, you're not. You're not.
Yes, I am.
Look at the literal math of that. If I'm paying you anything to do this job, then you can't be 50-50 creator with me because you're not 50-50, because I'm not getting paid to do this job.
No, so but we're talking about 50-50 on creating it. That's different.
That's still a monetary value. That's still a monetary value. That's the whole reason why you want to put the 50-50 value on it. What's the point then?
I don't really agree with that.
If there's not a value on it, why do you want 50%?
We could go back and forth with this for
I'm
quite
just
a
saying,
while.
if I got you don't want 50%.
But there is a value on the work as opposed to the creatorship, because the creatorship. Hold on. The creatorship exceeds and goes past, like, okay, all right, you and I did Heat.
Sure.
And but let's say you're the artist, I'm the writer, and I paid you to draw it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. You got paid to do this.
Mm-hmm.
We're both benefiting from the sales. So let's
Okay.
say it's one of those situations where you can order as many books as you want to sell. I can order as many books as I want to sell. So we
Okay.
both are getting paid off of that too.
Right.
Somebody comes along and says, I want to make Heat a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Then we both get 50% of whatever the monies are involved.
You said I'm the writer, you're the artist?
In this situation, you're the artist, I'm the writer.
Okay, then as the artist, I still made more money off of this than you did. And
But
that's not fair.
How is that? Then it's not about, we're not talking fairness, we're talking
But
business.
that's what 50-50 is. 50-50 is a matter of,
on the creatorship is for everything past
that's
it.
a matter of being fair. And at 50-50,
I wanna wait. Let me get back because there's a young man on here who has a very good question. No, an actual young man. This is not Danny, a young man. Hi, I recently finished my first book. Is there anywhere particular where I should start in terms of publishing?
Oh, that's a great question. I suggest online first. Any free space that you have that you can put up. It could be a blog, it could be Tumblr, it could be Webtoons, anywhere that you can share it on a regular, consistent basis is the right place to publish. Because once it's out in the world, it is published. You could take panels and put them up on Instagram. That's publishing. And as long as you are putting it out there in a space that doesn't necessarily cost you money, you have the ability to put yourself in a position of immediate profitability. So by all means, put it online, show it to people, get conversations from folks. And if you get enough of a buzz, or if you utilize a print on demand facet, where you're sharing it on a regular basis, but maybe somebody wants to jump ahead or capture the stuff that you've already shared, they can buy a physical copy. And again, because it's print on demand, it doesn't cost you anything out of pocket. And you have the immediate ability to make profit off of that. Definitely do that, by all means.
I would say if it's comic books, honestly, if it's a 24 page book, and I'm giving them a little shout out because I just did a promo for them. Comics Wellspring has very good prices, or 25 books. Just get 25 books, sell those 25 books. Take that money, flip it, buy 25 more books. Just keep doing it, keep flipping it, and just really do it on demand. But yes, like online is a great resource because it's free, and
all the time.
you don't have, most of the time it's free, and you don't have to worry about overhead,
right?
And it's all profit. So I would start there. That's the best place to make my name for yourself. And we were just talking about social media. Push social media. Get your name out there, and that's a great place to start in terms of publishing. But once again, start small, go big. If you start too big, it'll swallow you up.
Right.
If that makes any sense, like money wise, it'll swallow you up. Don't order 500 books. Don't.
Yeah, no.
Don't. Honestly, real talk. Don't get 500 books and then go to like the biggest convention and pay. Don't go to New York Comic Con and spend a crap load of money on the table.
That makes it harder. That makes it a lot harder.
It's a tough world out there because you are fighting against hundreds of people at just that con that are trying to do the same thing. Like I jumped in the deep end my first time. I had 3 issues of Heat, and I did Terrificon. I did well, by the way. I did really well, Terrificon. But I literally jumped in the deep end and was like, this is a lot. And everybody's doing it, and everybody's trying to get a small amount of dollars. And I know you're well aware of it, especially at Comic Cons. Like, people, if you are an independent comic book creator, nobody came there, especially if you're not well known. Nobody came there to buy your book. So if you get somebody to buy your book, you've moved a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so yeah, just start small. Use the internet; it's there for you.
Right.
It's there for you.
Be innovative about what you do when it comes to physical copies. I think there's nothing wrong with taking an average 24-page book and chopping it up into 3 8-page pieces. And that's how you produce them physically, because it's going to be financially cheaper for you. You're slowly building your audience in different platforms, different ways. So if you're putting it up online digitally, but I'm only producing a physical copy of 8 pages, people are vibing with it. Cool. You're like, hey, there's more that's coming. It's already ready. Like, it's all about how you put it together. It's like when people make and it's a music analogy, when people make an album, they drop a single, right?
Yeah.
Like, they don't necessarily just drop the whole album up front. I mean, some of them do now, but back in the day, when you really were counting on record sales, they would drop a couple of singles just to make sure that the clubs were rocking, the radio was rocking, make sure people were vibing with it, so that when the actual album came, people are rushing out to go get it. Same concept, exact same concept.
Yeah. And then build your audience, man. Build your audience slowly
definitely.
but surely, man. That's like the big thing. So I got one question. I did enjoy that conversation. We will revisit.
We can come back to it. We can come back to it.
Absolutely revisit that. I might even revisit that on top 5.
Let's go. I'm with it.
Hardest working man in comics. Your title.
Yes.
How did you get it? And do you really think you are the hardest working man in comics? Because we're gonna test this.
So how I got it came about from the number of conventions that I did in an annual calendar year, which averaged to a point. I think the highest that I ever had was like 50 events in a calendar year. 50 events in a calendar year. This is no joke. This is okay. So part of where this started was a conversation with another creator, another Ohio-based creator, and we were at a show. I think we were in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and they lean over to me and they're like, kind of gloating, like, "Yo, this is my 5th show in 5 weeks, like right now." And I'm like, "Word!" And like the way they said it was like, "Get some, like." You see what I'm saying? Like, what up, little kid?
Right.
Like, that was how I took it, right?
Okay.
And so I'm sitting there thinking about it, and I'm like tracing it back. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. And he's like looking at me like, what do you mean pretty good? And I was like, this is my 8th show in 8 weeks. And he's like looking at me like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. No, this is show number 8 in 8 weeks. And it low-key started like a little competition between the two of us, where they turned around and they did 15 shows in 15 weeks. I turned around and did 17 shows in 17 weeks. They did no, I'm sorry. I did 21 shows in 17 weeks, or 21 events in 17 weeks, because we started counting book signings and stuff like that.
Right.
And then they ultimately won by doing 24 events in 21 weeks, back to back. And the funny part was, like, through that whole competition, we talked about it online or whatever, and people are like, yo, hardest working man in comics. And the reason why they didn't get that title when they won at the end, like, they won. And it was partly because they were like, don't beat it next year. Like, they were asking me not to. Not that I couldn't do it. They were asking me not to do it because they knew that they couldn't do it again to go bigger. But part of the reason why they couldn't go bigger is because they had a full-time job. This is what I do for a living. So
right.
I could set it up where I can do, in a matter of days, I can boom, and you can't stop me. So I was asked not to do it. But the other part about it was, in my opinion, this person was a giant to me. Right. And if I can make a giant move, then I'm the winner. I made you jump. Like, you did this because I said, and now you're like, oh, I got to do this. Then I'm the winner. I'm the hardest working man in comics, not you. And so that's where that started, was looking at all the conventions that I started doing, the different panels that I was on, and the different ways that I started doing things. That's kind of how that happened, because, and this kind of goes into the question about big Comic-Cons being a scam. I put myself in a position where as an unknown, I've never worked for Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, but I earned guest status, and I'm talking to like not just I get to show up.
Right.
I was a brought out guest for
Right.
Wizard World for like most of their last couple of years. And that what that means, just to be, you know, frank with everybody, it got to the point where not only did I get a free table, not only did they cover my travel, not only did they cover my lodging, I got a stipend for food, and they paid me to be there. That, like, when you get to that space, I mean, you're talking the things that guys like Jim Lee, Jeff Johns, Mark Silvestri, Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, those guys can command that right now. To scale, I can too. And to be in that space, that's part of how I earned that title consistently, because there are times when I'm talking to guys like that, and we're talking about like, how many conventions do you do a year? And I get to telling them, and they're like, and you still do books? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, how? I work on the fly. Like, I'll work when I'm gone. I find ways.
You're just a writer. You're just a writer. No,
I'll tell you what makes it really funny.
I'm just messing with you.
No, what makes it really funny is everything that I write book-wise, I write 3 times. The first way I write is in prose. The second way I write it is I actually do the layouts for the book.
Oh, okay,
I will draw it. I actually draw it, but I never give the layouts to the artist.
You do it for your own.
I do it so I can see it, and that's how I write the script, and that's what I give to the artist. So again, any book of mine, I write it 3 times. So you'll see it in prose first, where I'm writing down all the plot points. Then I lay it out visually, and then I script it. That's what the artist gets. Not only do I do that, when it comes back, I'm the letterer. I'm also finishing, putting it together for print, sending it off to printing. Because of circumstances right now, I'm not doing this, but page by page copies and printing is a printer I help establish. Like, I was his first client, and there are times when I would go over there and I would help him print books. Wow. So hands-on all the way through. The only thing I'm not doing is drawing the book, because I don't want to. You can't get me to draw a book. I don't want to. I hate it. I don't want it. But so in addition to going to all these shows, making books still, then you also have to look at, I have my You Create Comics line. So I'm a phenomenological narratologist. So I teach people the philosophy of storytelling, how to tell stories themselves. I'm going into schools. I'm teaching kids. I've got a whole product line and programming line through, you know, the You Create Comics line. I'm also trying to, you know, have open conversations with other creators through my Unconventional series. It started off as an article series and went to was 2 seasons on YouTube, which we're going to be having a season 3 coming back. We're going to have a book series that's coming out for that one. I also have my geeking clothing line, which is the hat.
Awesome.
Like, all of these different things that I do on a regular basis, that is what makes me the hardest working man in comics.
I'm telling you right now, I'm coming for that. By the end of next year, I got stuff in the works. I'm promising you, I'm coming for it. But no, that's amazing, man. That's amazing, because I know Danny and his Danny wants that. That's the thing. Danny wants like everything comp for him so that he can just go.
You can do it. Listen,
no, I know, but that's why he's saying that cons are a con, because he's like, if you are paying, his philosophy is the people that are running the con want to make you believe that you're going to sell all these books and make all this money. And Morgan and I kind of tell him there's nowhere on any documentation or any marketing that says that. Right. Even if you talk to a creator for 5 minutes, they will literally tell you that is not what's going to happen. Right. Like, we try to get him to understand it, but you know, Danny, you know, when he digs in, he digs in.
I mean, I get it.
Let me get Savion,
what you got?
young man. Another question. I have a lot of stories without character design. Should I look into people willing to help me with the design as well as the comics? Or
That's what we were just talking about.
Savion, we just talked about that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, listen, Savion, what I would suggest that you do is write your story in prose form first and go ahead and publish it, right? Like, put that out there so that way your character as a literary concept is secure. Like, you've already established that. So that way, if you want to bring in somebody else as an adaptation of your stories, then you can definitely do that. You already have things in place that say, this is what I have in mind for this character, and go from there. Now, if you don't want to necessarily go in prose and you just want to kind of, start your comic series and have these characters crop up as they do, there's nothing wrong with that. But you do put yourself in a position, like Javon said, that you have to negotiate what ownership rights exist for these creations and how that will articulate should things move forward. And I got to give a shout out to Justin Castaneda, my co-creator on the Wonder Care series. We have a brilliant and absolutely brilliant agreement where he got a pay raise in terms of what we're doing, and it's a 50-50 ownership. However, one of the things that we did in our caveat was the imprint, Vantage In-House Productions, which is mine, gets 10% of whatever our sale price is when we go to an extra media thing. It gets the first 10%, and then Justin and I split whatever's 50-50 after that. So what I've done is I've used the fact that I have a publishing imprint as the mediator of him getting a commission versus the 50-50 split between us as co-creators, which not everyone has that. Not everybody decided to create an imprint in order to do this. They just create stuff, which is why I say, like, you can't do that if it's just a matter of writer artist and the artist gets paid, then it's not 50-50. Like, it's not going to be 50-50 because somebody's inevitably going to make more money than the other, and that becomes the problem.
But I was saying 50-50 on the rights. I think that's where we disagree.
No, same thing. No, it's the same thing. I'll tell you, no, because here's why. If you are the artist and they visually depict your character, you would expect the full rights of what you got, right?
But that's what I'm saying. But that's what I mean by but I also was saying that you have the best thing to do is, and this is probably where we agree, is sit down with the artist and figure out what will make you both happy.
Yes. Like before you get started on anything.
Right. Before you do anything. Like, okay, are you going to get this? How much are you willing to do this, and this? Well, if you're going to do this, then that means I'm giving you less on here. Like whatever you work on. So we can agree on that.
Right. But because the truth is that once you get to a certain level, there is no separation of, well, this is this thing and it only accounts for that. You can't do that. It's too hard. It's too subjective. And it's virtually impossible. That's why we get arguments about The Walking Dead and Robert Kirkman getting sued by
Charlie. Is it Charlie?
No, not Charlie. It wasn't Charlie. It was
the other guy.
It was Tony Moore.
Tony
sued because he felt like he was deserving XYZ, even though Tony only did the first 6 issues. How do you say that he gets this thing versus Charlie, who did a majority? Like, there's so much nuance behind that is just too difficult to try to pare down as a separate entity. That's why up front is way easier. Like you said, if you have this agreement that this is what it is up front, and everybody understands, you agree, then you keep moving and you recognize and
document it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That is 100.
Absolutely.
Document. Don't
be
verbal,
as open as possible.
No verbal agreements.
Yes. It's all got to be written down. So, and like I said, the thing about it is, when it comes to these certain things, I don't mind. Like, I'm a product of Mark Miller. I love him. He's my mentor. He's amazing, and I love the way that he breaks down deals in his publishing emblem. When he sold to Netflix, the rumor, I will say, is that he gave the artists 60% of the payout for each individual title. And part of the reason for that was he didn't mind giving them the bigger sum from that particular thing because he got some from all of it.
Everything.
So he didn't need to have the larger sum or even an equal sum to the artist in that regard because he got more pieces of the pie total than anybody else. And I'm like, that's an equitable. And I think that's the thing. Can you make it equitable?
Yeah.
It's never gonna be fair. It's never gonna be equal, but you can definitely make it equitable. No, you said you were trying to make it equal by making.
No, you said you said it's not fair.
I said it can be fair. Fair is equitable. Fair is equitable, not equal. I'm just saying.
But no, that's a great. That's actually a great strategy. I'm actually slowly but surely, because I have a couple of titles that I'm trying to put out. So I'm actually going into the waters. Like, I have a couple of artists that I'm talking to, and because I'm a designer as well, like, I'm trying to figure out like how am I going to do this? Because I know what all my characters look like. Hey, this is it.
Right.
Draw that. Like, but I don't want to be unfair because there's a certain style that people will be accustomed to seeing from it.
Sure.
And so like there is going to be, all right, I do think even if you are like giving people the characters to design, I think even if it starts to transcend and become something else, I do think it's fair to use that word to give some sort of royalty to that person, because in my mind, and I'm also thinking as an artist, that person is part of why it's successful, like.
So not to challenge that, but it's to give greater context to it though, it also becomes a matter of what happens beyond the creation of the thing. And what I mean by that is what moved it to that other point. Is the creation of it on its own worthy of that consideration of a percentage, or was it the actual work after the fact that got it there? So like there are a lot of creators that they get commissioned to do a job and they did the job because that's what they're paid for and that's it. But they don't promote the book, they don't sell the book themselves, they don't do any of that. So if it moves to a higher media transition, and it was just the writer that was moving it along, should the artist get that? Because they weren't really a part of the thing, the vehicle. And but again, that becomes part of something that should be negotiated ahead of time, not after the fact, because then it becomes subjective and that's where it gets mucky.
That's valid. That's very valid. I'm just enjoying the hell out of it. Because we don't talk enough about this.
Right.
At least I don't see enough podcasts talking enough about the weeds of business.
Yes.
When it comes to comic books, and then you end up with a lot of guys that run into the same situation where their thing is now blown up, and then somebody's coming in from the back door like, well, hey, I did this.
I should get this.
Right. Like I'll be darned. Like, once again, and I'm looking at it from a perspective of somebody that's doing everything. Like I don't have to do this with anybody.
Right.
But if I want to transcend and put more other stuff out, then it means, okay, all right, cool. Let me, like, there's a gentleman. There's a gentleman that I'm talking to right now. About doing a book with him, and I'm trying to figure out the contract. Like, how do I want, like, okay, look, you're doing work for me. These characters are already established, okay, I'm going to pay you this, but if this happens, you'll get this.
Right.
But if this happens, I'm trying, and it's just, it's something that you don't really think you're going to run into until you do, especially if you're one or the other. You're a writer or you're an artist. Because I can look at it from an artist's point of view as well and be like, man, I designed all this and da-da-da-da-da. And, a comic book isn't a comic book without the artist, so I should be getting such and such. And so it's just, yeah, I know we've had that discussion.
No, because
I've seen that discussion on internet.
It's a very strong discussion. I think the way that I would kill that conversation is the question isn't the sale of the comic book, it's the sale of the intellectual property.
Right.
Now, when you get into that, then you go, okay, well, so you're saying that they're two different things. You're like, yes. So now we have to get into what is your input on the intellectual property, not the comic book. And now we have a bigger conversation.
But that's what I was talking about before. If you come with somebody with once again, if you came to me and said, I want to do a book called Heat about a guy with superpowers, he controls light, heat, and fire. He's a black kid. And then I'm like, okay. And I take that and then I come up and I design the costume and the look and the feel and everything like that. Then it becomes this thing where it's like, well, where does the concept, where did it begin? Like conceptually, right? Yes, it began in the writer's head. But it was born, in my opinion, as an artist, thinking from a writer, it was born from my left hand and my drawing, because it was actualized into the world.
No, you can't say that. See, and this is the reason why I say that. Here's why I say that. Actualization, and this is I have a lawyer's brain and a lawyer's mind.
Okay.
So this is the tricky part. Actualization is when an idea comes into physical form, right? The idea of that is either written down or audially. That is technically an actualization.
The actualization.
That's an actualization. Now, you could easily argue the copyright of the visual image. You could absolutely argue that. Right. As the copyright owner, because you're the person that created the copyright of this thing, so long as you're not under work for hire contracts, you can make that argument. But that's the copyright, not the IP ownership, because copyright only protects the individual piece of what you've done. So if they don't use that individual piece, that's different. You couldn't trademark just off of the visual. You need all of it. And that in that space, you could maybe, if you agree, that you can get 50-50, but again, that's not work for hire. If it's work for hire, the person that paid you gets all ownership because that's what they're paying you for. It's not just the actualization of the piece. They actually are paying to own every part of it.
But this is it's funny how you put that because this is the big deal with Marvel and all that right now.
Yes.
Which I think it's fascinating.
It's hugely fascinating. Oh,
because God. I've even based off what you just said right there, being work for hire, I'm always on the creator side.
I get that. Like, I get that.
Yes, you paid me, but Wolverine didn't exist before you paid me.
But go back to what I said about the machine. Would Wolverine be as popular if not for the marketing behind what Marvel put? If you just take Wolverine as a character, is he actually as popular, or is what they did with him as a publisher what makes him popular? But that's the part that you can't argue.
But you can't have marketing without the character.
You can
otherwise you're marketing nothing.
No, because if you think about it, and this is the thing, there are characters that exist that aren't as popular as Wolverine. Why? They exist. Just in the argument of
what I'm saying is it's so Marvel has put marketing behind other characters that haven't become, like you said, that haven't become as popular as Wolverine. That's why I'm saying that the character is more important than the marketing. In my opinion,
I would say no.
I know you would.
But I specifically say no because even as a creator, what I recognize is that it's not just the creation itself that works. It's a lot of other parts and pieces that go.
I agree.
Which is why, like, we can have characters that change in their popularity. Case in point, Spider-Man was the penultimate showcase for Marvel for a very long time.
Right.
But towards the late 90s, he took a second position to Daredevil. Now, both of them are very popular characters. Very, very popular characters.
Why do you say that?
So when you look at what saved Marvel, and I put this in quotes, it was the Marvel Knights line, right? The key tenet of the Marvel Knights line was Daredevil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
Which is what turned it around. And so he actually outsold Spider-Man at the time. And so he became the more popular character. Both of them are very popular.
Marvel Knights didn't save Marvel.
Oh, it did.
I would say Heroes Return saved Marvel. Heroes Reborn saved Marvel, actually.
No.
Yeah.
Financially, no, it did.
Because those characters weren't viable. They didn't become it because Marvel Knights was after. It was basically the same idea, but Marvel was closer to bankrupt. I think they were bankrupt. And then
they were bankrupt when
Heroes Return. And then when they did Heroes Reborn, I keep saying Return.
It's Reborn. Yeah.
Right. Heroes Reborn pulled all those properties out of the muck. Yeah, they did. Yes, it did. Bruh.
No. I'll prove it to you. Are you ready?
I'm listening because I'm a historian on this.
Who was behind Heroes Reborn?
That was the creators and Rob Liefeld.
Who became editor-in-chief of Marvel?
That was Joe Quesada. I understand. Right. No. I understand Marvel.
No, but this is why.
Wait. I understand it. No, I know why, because of the success of Marvel Knights. I understand the position that Marvel Knights holds in Marvel. Like, I'm not disputing that it didn't do great things for Marvel. I'm saying that Heroes Return is what saved Marvel. Marvel, you can look it up.
I'll show.
From a money point of view.
I got the book over here that shows it. I got the book over here. It's the
what book is that?
2000-2001 Marvel in Review.
Okay, but this is before that, though.
But
that's
this is what I'm
saying.
but what I'm telling you is that they were still in bankruptcy for that.
Well, they were in bankruptcy for a while, though.
When they were bringing in Mark Miller and they were bringing in Brian Michael Bendis, they were still at risk of shutting down. That's what they told them when they got hired in the early 2000s, which is at least 4 years after Heroes Were Born. It did not save them. That did not save them. Yeah, they were
almost in bankrupt, but they were, even with the Marvel Knights, they were still almost in bankruptcy after Marvel Knights up until the MCU hit.
But that's what saved them, because that's what put Joe Quesada on, and he's the one that turned the ship around and made them survive into the 2000s. It was Marvel Knights that gave them that, because otherwise, if it was Heroes Were Born, Jim Lee would have been to Marvel instead of going to DC eventually, because that was the whole.
Well, they gave him a better deal, though.
But they didn't at the time. Not at the time.
No, because
it was after.
They bought Wildstorm, though. That's what I'm saying. They gave him a better deal.
That's why. Think about that. Like, he could have had Wildstorm at Marvel if he was the one in charge. He wasn't. That's why. Part of what happened with the Wildstorm buy was what Joe Quesada set up for Marvel, and DC needed to compete with that. And that's why they bought Wildstorm, because Joe Quesada, he was the champion. He was the people's champion of sorts, because he was a creator that was brought back into the fold as an executive.
I know. Yeah, I know.
He's the thing that saved Marvel. And that was because of Marvel Knights, not because of Heroes Reborn. Heroes Reborn.
I would love. I need to get somebody that was.
You got it. I'm telling you, you got to get this book. This book.
Tell me. Send me the link for it. Send me the link for it.
I actually have 2 copies of it because it's that good. One I wrote notes in, and this is what this book.
I've seen that book before. I've seen it before. Yeah.
Get it? It's out of print. It's by Jim McLaughlin, who is the co-founder of Heroes Initiative. It talks about how they turn things around in that first year of Joe Quesada being editor in chief, and they give you so much game. It is ridiculous. Excuse me.
Because I was in my teens watching Heroes Return. Like, I was 16? When was Heroes Return?
It was like 96. It's like 96.
I was like 15, 16. So, like, I remember the articles about Marvel. You got pizza, buddy?
Oh, give me some pizza. Awesome. I want some pizza. Hold on now.
I remember them being in bankruptcy, and I remember the uptick and how the way they spoke about how Heroes Return began the uptick of Marvel.
They wanted it to. It didn't actually work. That's the problem.
Well, no, because when Heroes Return happened, all those titles were selling like crazy. Avengers, Iron Man, and Captain America, they were selling.
Not by the context. Not by the context. No.
Is that in that book?
They don't talk about Heroes Reborn or Returns.
I would look into that, because Marvel, because those titles were moribund before Heroes Reborn, except for, I would say, Captain America, because Wade and Garney just took over it, and it was turning around. But like, they made a lot of money off Heroes Reborn.
What do you call a lot?
They were making more than what they were doing prior to it, because prior to it, those titles were all in the basement. Like Fantastic Four, it's documented. Fantastic Four, they were trying their best not to cancel Fantastic Four. They were trying their best. That's why you would see.
Are you basing this off of Wizard editorial articles? Because
no, I mean, I go back. I consider myself to be a historian of the game.
I get that.
Like Fantastic Four, there's plenty of articles where people were talking about how hard they were fighting to keep that from being canceled.
Of course.
Captain America, once again, they gave it to Wade. It was like, hey man,
do whatever you want.
Avengers was doing crazy stuff like Tony Stark being a teen to try and keep people in seats. They were trying to keep butts in seats. Thor was a very low selling title. Like, they were all on a lower scale. Once Jim Lee and Rob came in, they were selling a lot. They were selling a lot of copies. And then when Heroes Return came back around, well, everything is contextual because once again, you're talking about the industry that was on the downswing as a whole.
Right. And
so
what I'm saying is,
when you say a lot of copies, I mean a
right.
lot of copies considering the fact that they were bottoming out as an industry as a whole. Now, Heroes Return was an upswing because they brought in, they had like Kevin Smith, and then Christopher Priest was coming in.
Kevin Smith was under Marvel Knights.
That's what I'm sorry. Marvel Knights.
Yeah.
Marvel Knights came in on the upswing because I think that was part of the industry as a whole taking a turn back because they had sifted their way through the speculator market.
The thing about Marvel Knights, though, was they were their own separate office that was run by Event Comics.
Right.
So that was Jimmy Palmiotti and Joe, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they were a separate division, much in the same way that the Heroes Reborn was a separate division.
Right.
Between the two, one of them survived and one of them did not. That's why
one
I'm
of them
saying,
survived but you also have to take into account that there were also issues with Liefeld in him getting his titles.
But what you're saying is
Marvel Knights had more consistency.
But what you're saying is that the individual creators in there superseded the imprint. That's not the way that worked. Because even Jimmy went over to DC, right? When Joe became editor-in-chief, Jimmy went to DC. Marvel Knights still existed as an imprint. Like they still used it because it was a viable imprint. Heroes Reborn has not been a viable imprint. That's why it's never come back.
Well, that's because it failed at the end. Like that's the difference.
That's my point.
I understand, but but it was more. I was more contextually talking about saving Marvel, and like
I don't think it did because I think it actually failed to save Marvel, which is why they did.
But the Heroes Return was a part of it. So I kind of put them both together. Heroes Return.
I don't think that Heroes Return. Yeah, I think that both of them together mutually were the failure because they weren't the uptick that they wanted it to be.
You don't think Heroes Reborn you think Heroes Return was a failure?
The best thing out of Heroes
Music
Return,
and Perez.
That's the best thing. That's the one thing.
Garney and what are you talking about? Music and Sean Chen. That was I just saw Sean Chen.
Nowhere near as good. And I love Sean's work. I've loved Sean's work forever. His work on Iron Man was great. Nowhere near as good as
I got to get numbers, man.
You gonna have the no, not even the numbers. I'll ask you this.
Right.
Can you name a specific arc from that run that's not Kurt and George on Avengers?
Well, Mark and Garney came back.
But can you name an arc, like an actual, like this was a standout arc
absolutely.
Right here?
Breaking his shield. Well, number one, I'm a Captain America fan, so I'm probably the wrong.
But what's that arc called? What's
the name of it? The Skrulls one. I can't remember the name of the Skrulls one. And then he had the arc with the Red Skull, and then there was the arc where Captain America's shield broke. Mm-hmm. And then he had to go to Wakanda and everything. I don't remember the names of the type. I mean, but I once again,
I'm saying that right there is the pinnacle of its impact. When you remember the name of it, and this is the reason why I say this, is because this is part of the era that we're starting where the name of something translates into multimedia showcases. That's how you know it's impactful, right? Because when they start to use it in other media, then you know, like, this is an iconic piece and this is what it is. Marvel Knights has done that. Heroes Reborn has not. Heroes Return.
Marvel Knights only had two though.
Two what?
Daredevil was Daredevil. To your point about huge. The Spider-Man, Daredevil was huge. Mm-hmm. Christopher Priest on a lesser level until the Black Panther movies came back around. Because even if you talk with Christopher Priest, he was talking about, I forgot what article, but he was talking about how the sales kept, even though it's wildly regarded as one of the best runs, literally the sales weren't going where they wanted. So he had to keep doing things to try and get the sales back up.
He was a little too Black Comics for Black Comics at the time.
Oh yeah, he was very, very much so.
But again,
but other than that, other than those two titles, Marvel Knights.
Wow.
What other Marvel Knights title?
Wow, Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee's Inhumans changed the scape,
right,
the whole scape of that one. The only one that was a misfire, was the Angel Punisher series.
Okay.
It's the only one that was a true misfire.
But even the Marvel Knights title, that didn't do great.
Oh, it did phenomenally. Yeah, Marvel Knights
But
continue.
Can you remember? Like,
Can I remember?
Can you name a arc off that one?
Like Guardian Devil, like that?
No. The actual title,
Marvel Knights when they did the
it was like a team up.
Yeah, because it was, what was it?
It was like Shang-Chi and
Shang-Chi, Punisher. Oh my god, I know I read that one for a little while. That one I did drop.
But that's what I'm saying.
I dropped that one in favor of the Ultimate line. But what I'm saying is
if you want, but that's what I'm saying.
Knights,
like both of those titles. Yeah. It did. I'm gonna give you that. Both of those titles. I got you for Heroes Return. The Thor arc. The Thor arc with the Asgardian Destroyer.
That JRJR did.
Yes,
it's not bad. It's not bad.
But my point being is that both imprints, if you call them what they are, had substantial successes. And if you compare the successes, I think it's about equal. Now, if you want to talk sales in the era, I can't speak to the sales on one. I would need to probably do some research to find out how the sales.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I'm definitely I'm literally going I'm going to get in there and find out. But let me get this question. Let me get this question for this young man. Last question before he heads out. Is there any advice you can give to newer authors who want to keep writing after their first book? I appreciate the advice you gave. Have a great night. Keep writing.
The advice that I have, not only is it keep writing, pretend like each book is your first book. That way you keep having that same bit of hunger and the tenacity to achieve something. If you start to look at it as my next book, you sometimes put yourself in a position behind the 8 ball where you're comparing yourself depending on the response to that first book. But if you constantly approach it as though it is your first, you eliminate that specific comparison and you drive yourself with that bit of hunger all the time, every time. That's what it gives you. So yeah, keep writing, but keep approaching each project as though it's your very first time doing it.
Awesome. All right. So before we go, I want to keep you forever. I swear to God,
we can talk for all day.
We really could, and this is why we got to do GalaxyCon. We got to get this done. At the end of every show, we do top 5. Top 5. Okay. So I give you a top 5. I didn't come up with the top 5 until just now.
Oh, snap. Okay.
Oof. So I'm in the spirit of your profession.
Yeah.
Top 5 favorite comic book writers.
Top 5 favorite comic book writers. Tip top of the list is going to be Mark Millar, without question. I model so much of my career off of him. Robert Kirkman, next. I actually just gave him a shout out this morning because I was thinking about the Kirkman Manifesto and how important that has been to just my general perspective. Top 5. You brought him up. I got big love for Mark Waid. It's one of my buddies. I love him. He's a fantastic guy and a good friend. I
might, if I ever meet Mark Waid, I don't generally get fanboyish, but I probably would get fanboy.
I get that. I 1,000,000% get that. The first time I met him, I did a roast of him. So I said some of the most derogatory things possible on my first meeting of that man. And he is wonderful for taking it on the chin like he did. Jeez. The hard part is picking, like not figuring it out, but picking who is on this. Who am I going to say right now? So let me caveat this. This is my top 5 today because
that's fine. That's fine.
Priest is definitely a game changer. His ability to take a character, particularly of African descent, and make them nuanced and modern. Obviously his run on Black Panther, game changer. His run on Black Adam right now, prolific. So I'm definitely gonna give him that one. It's so good. It's so good.
I get it. I'm behind, man. I don't do monthlies like I used to.
Listen, I get it. If I didn't have my comic review show, Black, White, and Red All Over, also part of the thing that makes me the hardest.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out like how you ain't, how
I gotta get a copy. I need a copy. I need a physical copy. Once I get a physical copy, I can read it. That's the thing. We can't do digitals because it's too difficult to review at the shop.
I got you. I got you. That's one more.
I got to give it to my girl Blake Northcott.
Oh,
she's
wow.
she's doing some big things with heavy metal right now. I
Okay.
really enjoy her writing. So
Okay.
just to mix it up a bit, yeah, like
Okay.
those are my top 5 today. So
All right.
yeah,
So my top 5 today.
yes,
Wade, of course.
okay,
I mean, I'm literally staring at his run on the Flash on
I dig
my
that.
bookshelf right
I
now.
dig that. Him with Ringo, yeah,
Yeah, even before Ringo with Greg
I got you.
LaRoque.
Okay,
I got the whole thing right there.
nice,
Like,
nice.
I'm a Wade fan. This is tough because I've done this list before, but I can't
Yeah.
remember who I picked. And it's different,
Ooh,
and
it
it's
does
different
change.
now.
It changes.
It's different.
Yeah, it always
So
changes.
I'm a Christopher Priest, of course.
Okay.
Black Panther. I've read like almost everything he's put out except for
I
the
dig
Black
that.
Adam thing. I couldn't
Okay.
get on that.
See, when
Grant
you go
Morrison.
see, Grant was on my list, and I'm like,
Grant Morrison.
pulling teeth.
I probably read his Justice League, his JLA, at least maybe 3 times a year.
Classic. It's classic.
I love that run.
It's All-Star Superman for me. That's the one
Yeah.
I go ham.
Oh, yep.
New X-Men, all of that.
Damn, this is freaking hard. I'm looking at my bookshelves now.
Right, you're like, who can I pick? Who can I pick?
Yeah, like, you know who I love?
Who?
He's written 2 of my most favorite series that I read all the time. Brian K. Vaughan.
Shout out to Kayvon. It's one of the Cleveland Bryants.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
There's 3 Bryans from Cleveland. So it's Brian K. Vaughan, Brian Michael Bendis, and Brian Azzarello.
I knew Bendis was from Cleveland. I didn't know the Azzarello. But yeah, Brian K. Vaughan.
Yeah.
Ex Machina, Why the Last Man.
Classics.
2 of my favorite ones. I just
Paper
started
Girls.
I didn't get to Paper Girls. I just got into Saga.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I'm behind, man. Dude, here's the thing. When I'm sure you can when I read my comics to go to bed, but I read stuff that I've already read to my
shut
mind.
it down, calm it down.
Right.
Yes.
So it's hard for me to like get into new stuff because then I'm like, oh man, I got to finish this page and I got to. All right. So number 5.
Yeah.
This man, he's. I was looking at my thing. Kurt Busiek. I got to give a shout out to him right now.
How about the Kurt? He's awesome.
The Avengers run.
Listen,
Marvel.
We would have words with thee. Come on, best 7 words Thor's ever spoke.
Listen, that entire run. It's like I know a lot of people want to say that the Ultimates is what influenced so much of the MCU, but you'd be shocked at how there's so much that comes from Kurt and what he's doing, especially now with the multiverse and all this Kang stuff. Like they are front and center. Right. Kang Dynasty, the new title. Yeah, that's literally the name of the Avengers movie coming out. So Kurt, those are my 5 right now. I've missed quite a few people. Alan Moore. I've been getting into Alan. Chuck Dixon.
Really?
Who I am aware of his political leanings. Sure. But I was reading
Batman was great.
His Nightwing is my top 2 favorite character. Okay. And I ate up his run on
that was
Nightwing.
Him and Scott, right? Oh. Yeah. Classics.
I mean, and Scott is one of my favorite artists.
Gotcha.
And he influences so much. Peter David, though, you're right there with Peter David.
Right? Like there's so many names, it's almost impossible.
I mean, Spider-Man 2099 was like the first book I collected from start to finish.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I was because when it came out, I was like 15, 16. Yeah. So I was just now having a little bit of money to buy stuff. Yes. And like when I remember buying the first issue of Spider-Man 2099. I like it. And I was like, this is amazing. By the way, Rick Leonardi, freaking amazing artist. By the way, I didn't get to meet him. He was at Baltimore Comic Con.
Really?
He had a line, and I ain't want to be rude and jump in front of one.
That's what that's for.
But you know, some of these bar cons, like I might not know what the artist looks like or the writer looks like. And nobody's wearing like titles and stuff.
That's true. But that's the benefit of social media. You can find out who these guys are.
I know, but BarCon is also like crazy too. It's like,
so here's the thing. This is the thing to do from now on.
Listening.
Especially if Heroes International, or not Heroes International, geez, that's Mike Watson shout out. Thank you. Is there, they will introduce you to people because you tell them that you want to meet these people. That is what they do. That is literally what they do, especially because, quiet as it's kept, Jim McLaughlin, who, like I said, co-founded Heroes Initiative, he raps for Rick. Like, that's how he got to that show. Yeah. Yeah.
So once again, shout out to all the people that I met in Heroes Initiative. Desiree, Shannon, Hazel. I forgot the gentleman's name. Oh my gosh, I feel so bad. There's another guy. He bought my book too. I feel so bad. But
you remember next time you see him.
I know. I never forget faces.
There you go.
But shout out to all of them. But you're right. So he was there, but that series was the first that I got start to finish. And then I followed when he did Young Justice. I was like I literally have the whole run of Young Justice to this point right now, the trades of it. Peter David, but I mean, there's just so many writers. Robert Kirkman too, you know, Invincible is one of the parents of Heat. There's a few, but Walking Dead, it's tough, man. You just it's really tough. Like that's a hard one to do. Don't ask me top 5 artists. I will lose.
Oh man, it's tough. It's tough.
But yeah, man, like, you know, but like you said, it's, you know, this whole comic book thing, and it's so great hearing your journey.
Thank you.
Because you know, I was saying this to Danny and Morgan, how like they don't know it, but I'm always like competing with them.
Good.
Not in a negative point of view, but like, you know, they'll be like, oh, I'm doing this Kickstarter. This book is out now. I'm like, all right, let me get to work. You know, like, you know, Michael Watson.
Steel sharpens steel. That's the point.
Right.
That is the point.
And so like when, you know, I had met you and then, you know, I start seeing you, you know, social media opens that door to start seeing what people are doing. So, and then he's like, hardest working man. I'm like, wait a minute. I write, draw, letter, ink. I'm marketing. Now. I'm like, but you know, you tell me, you know, you out there hustling. And like, I'm always telling people who are trying to get into this industry, if you don't have a maniacal drive,
you're not gonna make it.
If you don't have a maniacal drive, just don't start.
Right.
Like you won't make it. And I don't mean that in a bad way, like you suck. I'm just saying the person next to you. Yeah, the person next to you is probably working when you chilling. And then Comic-Cons are really good for that. Oh, Comic-Cons
will change your perspective on so many things. For anyone that's listening right now, this is a little bit of game that I give every creator that it is counterintuitive, but it's absolutely true. If you are at a convention, even if you're by yourself, go to a panel. Be on a panel specifically. Be on a panel. A lot of people will be like, well, I can't be away from my table for 45 minutes to an hour. Yes, you can. The reason why is this is the mentality that you have. If you are at your table, you feel like whatever traffic may come by, you can grab, right? So you're fishing, essentially. And that could potentially be hundreds, if not thousands of people. I get it. In that 45 minutes, you know, span, that you are now competing for their attention. But at 45-minute panel, you have dozens of people with their rapt attention strictly on what you have to say for a few minutes that you can then convert into sales so much easier, because what you've done is you've promoted yourself and you haven't had to, you know, pitch your book or whatever. You're getting them to come see you after the panel. You can use a panel to bring people to you. Like, do that. It is the easiest change that you can make to your repertoire as a creative. Be on a panel. Yeah, and I would also add on to that.
you should watch what other people are doing.
Sure.
Because I remember when I did Dragon Con, there was a
Mhm.
gentleman across from me, and he never stopped. He never sat down. He was up. Somebody walked by. Hey, how you doing? They keep walking. That's fine. Hey, how you doing? And he was just. I got to see him again at at Baltimore Comic
Was
Con.
that Henri? Was that Henri?
I don't know.
With
He
his,
does.
with his Compin? Copin is
He does like a samurai.
Yep, that's Henri. Yeah, that's Henri.
This dude.
Yeah, he is
doesn't.
brutal. He is amazing.
Amazing. He changed my mindset on how because I never forget, because before I would sit down and I would talk to people and everything like that.
Nah,
like
he is like,
and he would just be selling. And so like I would watch him and I'm like, okay, I can't sit down.
Right.
I gotta stand up. And so now I never sit down.
Experience, man. He creates an experience. It's one of the greatest things.
And like at first I thought, like it's almost like this line, right? Like between obnoxious and entertaining. And you just got to stay right underneath.
That's right. I think his book is called Shishuni. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah,
he remembered me though. Like I was actually kind of shocked because it was.
Oh no, he's awesome.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Good guy.
Yeah.
But
be on his show. He does a show as well. Definitely, if you get a chance, let him interview you because you'll love it. You'll love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You got to give me his name after. But like it changed my perspective on how I should work. And the funny part is when I did Baltimore Comic Con, I was sitting next to two guys and I kept standing up. And I feel like they were like, well, we got to stand up too. So all three of us are standing up. And I'm just like, and you know, I can talk. Right. So I'm like, I would just say something crazy to people when they walk by. And like, or like if somebody just looks back a little bit, I'm like, man, you ain't got to drive, you ain't got to do drive by. Come on back. I'm not gonna bite you. Free. And I think a lot of people don't understand the level of hustle is involved, especially at the big cons. Smaller cons, you can chill a bit.
Right.
But when you're at the big ones,
you got to make that noise.
You can't be on your phone, and it's the reason why I don't do commissions. And I don't do quick drawings. And it's probably to my detriment because I could probably make some money. But it just depends on, like, it's either I'm making money doing this, like $50 to $100 to this, or I'm getting 3 or 4 people to buy a book.
Right.
And I don't take commissions after the con. I don't take commissions that I give to people after the con.
Okay.
A, because I don't want the responsibility.
I get that.
And B is because after the con is when I go to work.
Gotcha.
And when it's time to network and everything like that. And I don't want to have to worry about, okay, now I got to go back to my room. Like I saw Afua, shout out to Afua. It was a pleasure seeing you again. But she was at BarCon drawing.
Yes.
And I was like,
I don't want that.
I was like, listen, it's amazing that you are willing and able to do it, but I'm not here for that. But it's just understanding, it's just like anything else, like basketball, it's anything else, somebody else is going to be working harder than you.
Without question.
And I watch you and I watch Michael Watson and Greg Ellisay and how hard y'all hustle. And I'm like, okay, so I got to get there. And the great thing about you guys is you guys have been welcoming and helpful to help me get there.
Yes. And here's the thing. This is part of my mentality of this hardest working man in comics thing is it's not a title that I rest on. It is something that is my daily challenge. Every day when I get up, what am I doing to earn that title today? And the best part about it is, especially when I get a creator like you that's like, I'm coming for it. Great. Because what that means, I love it because it means I can't sleep, I can't chill, I can't act like, well, I got this, I've been in the game. No, if I'm gonna hold on to this title, I gotta create. The best part about it would be for me to lose it, because if I lose it, that means what you've done is amazing, and I will give you those roses. I will tell you are a G for what you did. But now I'm on your tail.
Right.
Keep it up. keep it up because I'm coming right back. And we all get better when we have that mentality. When you have friendly competition, we all get better. You know, it's not a matter of, oh, well, this is the guy. We are the guys. When you have the conversation and every name you put up, people are like, oh, well, yeah, that guy too. Not him too. That's when we know, like, we're of a class of very talented, creative individuals, and everybody gets respect and love because we all have earned it without question.
And the crazy part about that is, I remember after the first 3-issue miniseries I did, I thought I had made it. No joke.
No, I get
like
that.
I did my first con and I sold out and I was like, oh man, you know,
I'm
so
here. Like, this is easy.
Right. And so I like took my time coming out with the next one, and like, you know, some things happened in my life. And then around that time, like that's when my mother passed.
Gotcha.
And so like everything kind of like shut down.
Right.
So like I had already rested, and then on top of resting, it was like
then you had grief on top.
Right.
Of that.
And then like I started to go, okay, my mom would want me, just like, you know, you were pushed by that, like my mom pushed me. But that's when I did Dragon Con.
Got you.
And so I saw old boy hustling, but then to my left, them Tuskegee Air boys over there
pushing.
They not even like, and I just talked about this with Morgan on Top 5. They not even like pushing people.
Right.
Like people just show up. And I was like,
right word of mouth. And one of the things I give Greg and Marcus their credit for with that product, the name alone sells itself. Sells itself. Like it's one where you're just like slam dunk without question. The only thing that I feel like I have created that does that is the Kindergartenians. That's when people are like,
that's awesome.
Oh snap! That's the level that Kindergartenians has for me, is that it's up there with Tuskegee Airs in terms of its iconic name. Genius. I held on to that when I first heard about them years ago. I was like, I don't even know them. Tuskegee Airs? Are you serious? Genius name. Genius.
Bro, they were just chill, sitting down, just yeah. And I was just like, and that's actually when I began to find this little niche of creators, like this community, because I made, you know, I befriended Greg and Michael. Is Michael, right?
Marcus.
Sorry, my bad, Marcus. I was thinking Michael Watson. I befriended Greg and Marcus, and then I met Sanford Green, and then it was like, wait, there are other people. And so like my competitive spirit was like, okay, y'all where I gotta get. And then I run into Michael Watson, and then Danny, who's a dynamo in and of itself. Don't tell him I said that.
I ain't gonna tell him. He's not listening.
Hey, if you're watching, don't let Danny know I said that. But Danny and Morgan, and it's like, okay, every time I get deeper into this community, I'm seeing that there are levels to this.
Right.
And you just, you know, no matter like, you know, Tuskegee Heat is not Tuskegee Airs, but like the name provides so many puns.
Right.
I didn't even realize it.
It opens it up. It opens it up.
It's the first, you got bringing that heat or got that hot. And people just associate with it well. And I'm thankful. You know, I'm thankful every day, because the worst thing you could be is nobody gives a crap.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like nobody wants
worse.
Right. So like, it's just like learning there are levels to it. And a lot of people that get in the industry think you're going to jump to the Tuskegee Airs, Kindergartenians, you know, level immediately, and without seeing how much hard work goes into it. And that's why I like my show, this show, because I'm trying to open the door to let people see there's work that goes in this, man. There is sleepless nights. There are Kickstarters that fail. There are Kickstarters that succeed. There are, you know,
that over succeed. Like you got to, you're now, you know, buried in a mountain of output that you have to put in. Yeah.
Right. And there's not resting on your laurels. And and I don't think a lot of people who come up and say, well, yeah, I've got this idea for a comic book. I don't, because I didn't.
Right.
When I first started, I thought I was, my first book was going, it was just going to blow up. And when it failed spectacularly, and I like saying it failed spectacularly because I've come far.
Now you have the chance to learn something.
Right. And it's just like I'm trying to get people to see the type of industry, especially people who have no idea what the industry is like, and just think, well, you put out a comic book and it becomes, because everybody's like, I'm going to buy this book. And when it becomes a movie, I'm going to be right there. And I'm like, thank you.
Okay, cool.
You might need to buy like 100 more.
But I'm on it though. I'm gonna keep working to get there. That's the thing.
Right. And so, I appreciate gentlemen like you and the rest of the guys for providing competition, but also quality, guys who've opened your arms and welcome me. Like the first time you and I talked, you ain't know me from Adam, but we, yeah.
You in the game, man. I'm embrace you. Like that's the thing.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And I'm always show my appreciation, especially, we definitely got to get up at some point.
For sure.
We're gonna make this thing happen that we'll talked about.
Hit a BarCon. We'll hit a BarCon and we'll make
that. I'm telling you, if this thing happens that we talking about, and we definitely got to work together, man. Listen, if you need a cover or anything, man, I'm down.
Hit you up. I will hit you up.
No joke, man. I keep telling people
because like literally, I am growing. I literally just announced for the first time ever, I am having an open submissions for Vantage In-House. So this is going to be the first. Thank you. We're growing at a rate. Big shout out to AHA Media. I signed a first look development deal with AHA Media last year, and so there are projects of mine that are getting pushed into movies, animation, different things like that. And so we need more content. And so there it is. Because of that, I'm opening up for submissions to people to work on some specific projects that I have in mind. And I'll be hitting people up for that. So you are on the list.
Yeah, man. Let me know, man. I might not be able to get interiors because interiors take so freaking long.
I listen. I maxed out when I asked for this. I only asked for 8 pages total. If that's too much, I get it. So
because I was supposed to do something. I was supposed to do something for Lori Foster.
I got you.
For the other court, and she was on me about it. And I was just like, I gotta finish heat number 1. I gotta finish strong number, and like I'm finishing heat number 2 right now. I'm trying to get it done before Christmas. So I mean, but I can do covers. I can knock a cover out.
Okay.
For
I'm gonna hold you to
but
that.
I want to work. I would love to work with you. I might have a project that I need a writer for.
We'll talk about it. We can talk about it.
But we
listen. I read a lot.
I know. You know what that sucks is because I am in the art point, it's hard for me to write as much as I want to.
I get that.
Because I got to shift my entire brain.
Yeah.
And then
that's the hard part.
Hard to shift back because I'd be like, I forgot how to draw.
Because it's not the brain that you're talking with.
Right. I'd be like, what do I do again? Yeah, wait. Okay. All right. I'm back. Okay. And then when I stop drawing, then I get back to
the writer side.
What do I do now?
Right.
But we definitely gonna make it happen. Is there anything before we go? Because we went over, but listen, man.
This was a good conversation.
This was a great conversation. I hope if you're watching, I hope you learned something. I hope you were helpful. If you're whatever journey you're in, like I feel like this advice can help you. Like,
absolutely.
And it doesn't necessarily just need to be comics, it could be literature, whatever it is,
right.
when you're talking to somebody who does like 150 shows a year, that should tell you the level of work you need to do, especially because this man's he's doing it full time, and you'd be surprised at how many of us in the industry want to be doing this full time.
Right.
So he's setting a benchmark that I'm being real. You're setting a benchmark that many creators are aspiring to. And you got a lot of people on. I know Danny said he's on.
Danny says it all the time. He says it all the time, and I love it.
Danny's trying. I'm gonna try and get. I'm gonna try and get you because I'm gonna put out. I promise you, I'm putting out 4 between 4 and 6 books next year.
Okay.
And I'm
I
trying
like
to hit. I'm trying to hit 20 events. That's all I
Okay.
could do.
Hey,
I got a
listen,
full-time job.
I get that.
That's all
Hey,
I can do.
you got a full time. Listen, I get that 1,000,000%.
So
I do.
technically it counts,
You know,
because I
yeah.
am doing work.
You gotta put the work in. You gotta do this other thing. That's the trick. Is like I made doing this my full time job just so that I can do this the way that I
Wait,
want to.
do you got kids?
I have 5.
You have 5 kids?
I have 5 children. Yeah,
My God,
dude, I'm an
How old are
excuse
they?
killer. My oldest is 19. My oldest will be 20 in January. Yeah. So I've got 19, 18, 16, 13, and a 5-year-old.
Now, were you doing all this before you had your kids?
No. Well, I mean, I started doing conventions and stuff. The year I found out that my ex-wife was pregnant with our first son, 2003, that's when I started like kind of working with Mike and stuff like that. So that's when I started. I've had the
But you
kiddos.
started younger than me, though.
What was it? 20? I was 21. Yeah, I was 21. Yeah.
Yeah, how old are you now?
I'm 40.
Wow,
Yeah.
we're not that far off.
No, not at all. Based on what you were saying in terms of time frame and age, yeah, I just turned 40 in April.
I mean, I'll be 42 next year.
Okay. I mean, it's still like I'll be 41.
But I started my career started in 20. Well, he popped off 2015.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm,
like, and that's the thing. Like,
I'm just.
But no, it's like the comparison to make, in my opinion, is have you made any sort of impact by 44? And the reason why I say that is Jack Kirby was 44 when he did Fantastic Four #1.
Okay.
So Stan Lee was 40 when he did Spider-Man. Like, so these are there's time periods of learning, and then there is the doing. And I'm in my doing era now. Like all of the hardest working man in comic stuff was me learning, and now it's the doing era that I'm in now. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
That's interesting. I mean, I could see that. I'm in my doing of the art and the work. Like I get like I think artistically, I'm at a level. I'm more of at a professional level, even than I was when I first started.
Okay.
Like, I feel like my art is definitely on a different level.
Yeah.
To the point where it's hard for me to even look at Heat #1. Yeah, I know. I know people like
I
it.
get that.
I'm happy y'all like it.
So glad y'all like it. Hard. I don't gotta like it.
Hard. Yeah. So, but I think from a business point of view, I am learning. Especially like learning about the cons and learning about how much I need to spend and how much I need to make and everything like that. So, okay, all right.
Yeah, the con circuit can be college in a lot of ways for what you're aiming for. And one of the first things I tell creators is if you got a group of people that would have a like mind or whatever, band together, get a hotel room together, like do these things as a troupe because it makes it so much easier.
I know, but that's so hard for me because at the end of the day, I just be like, I want to talk to nobody. I don't want to have to, I don't mean it. No disrespect to anybody. It'd be so hard. It'd be so difficult.
You get tired. I get that,
bro. It just be like, I don't really want to talk when we get in the room. Like,
but that's what I'm saying. Like when I say like-minded people, they'll understand, and you're not asked to talk.
Right.
Just be there. So like,
I might have to do that.
Listen, I'm telling you, that's one of the biggest. I think that was the biggest moment of my career so far is when I started getting invited to shows and they're covering my hotel and stuff. So I'm bringing my friends that are going to exhibit. I'm like, y'all stay with me. Now your show is automatically that much better because that's less money that you had to spend to even be
That's
there.
right. That's
so good. My come up is our come up. And
you're right. That's actually a great idea.
You know what I'm saying? So when you get that move,
I gotta wait. And then it's like me traveling is like, I don't have to like wake up with my son,
right,
and everything. So like, it's kind of like the only time I can sleep 8 hours.
I get that.
Like, and even then, I'm not sleeping 8 hours, unfortunately, because I'm doing BarCon and everything like that. But that's like the only time. I don't,
That's a necessity. You gotta know yourself on that one. I only need 4 hours. I only need 4 every day. So I operate like
you don't take naps?
Sometimes.
Oh, okay. I was about to say that's not healthy, man.
Yeah. I mean, but it's my biorhythm works. Like I totally understand. For a lot of people, it doesn't work that well. For me, it does. Like I can be up till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'll wake up at 7. Worst scenario.
I think for me, I think it's different because of my full-time job.
Yeah, I get that.
Like I probably, my body chemistry, like I need a little, like after this, I'm probably be up for another half an hour.
Gotcha.
And then I'm like, all right, I need to sleep because I try to hit the gym and like I'm trying to do like other things because I want to take care of my body. Cause I know like when I first was doing heat, I was killing myself. Like I was doing like all-nighters. Like I was up to like 3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
And like
and it's time to go to work the next day. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll quick story. I mean, my graphic novel, I had to do 2 days of all-nighters to get it done so that I can get it to the printer so that I could have enough time for it to be printed for a con that was happening, I think like a week or 2 from now. And this was on my birthday.
Wow.
So like, and then my son was like 1. He wasn't even 1 yet.
Gotcha.
And so like, I passed out. Like I never forget. I finished at like 8, 9 in the morning.
Yeah.
No, like 11 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was up coloring.
Wow.
And lettering at the same time. Like I was like, and then I was like, all right, it's my birthday. I'm gonna go get some Chick-fil-A. And then I went to Chick-fil-A and I sat down in Chick-fil-A and I laid my head and I fell asleep for like 30 minutes.
Wow.
And so like I realized at that point, especially then that now I had a son and my son was waking me up and he was screwing up my
biorhythm. Yeah.
Right. I was like, I'm no longer doing all-nighters. Like I need to be sleeping at a certain time. If that means I have to do something else, like if I have to work, if I have to get up a little earlier, that's fine. Like, and then working out. Yeah. So like, there's a certain, especially because then you go to cons and then I'm standing for 8 hours. I'm not eating lunch, like I'm eating terribly.
Right.
Like, I have to balance it out. So it's like you gotta find the sacrifice, and then you gotta find the balance.
Of course, yeah. That's like when my daughter was born, I was stay-at-home dad with her while still doing all of this. So that was a different challenge, and I ended up being like artist alley coordinator for Wizard World at the time, and I'm on conference calls and I'm feeding my daughter. Like it was crazy. There's pictures and jokes making fun of me for being on conference calls with the company in LA while I'm feeding my kid. It's hilarious. But it's again, like you said, when you have that drive, this is what you do.
You make it work.
Find a way. Yeah. Find a way.
So. Yeah. So I mean, I totally get it's just, I admire people. Like I think it's funny when you have creators who don't have kids. And they're like, oh, I'm doing da 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 da. Like,
you're
hey,
like,
listen,
put a kid in the mix and see what happens.
Right. Like, you see how your productivity takes
exactly.
Like mine shifted when my son came along. And now that he's a little older, I'm kind of shifting back.
Right.
But it's like, you just kind of have to like, all right, it's funny you said about your work hours. So like now I got like, okay, these hours I'm working. Like I'm not doing anything else.
Don't look for me. Don't bother.
Don't bother me. Yeah. Like if you could talk to me when I take a lunch break, then I got to get back to work.
That's it.
And so like that was really helpful for me because I was trying to find the balance. And like every Tuesday and Thursday, like my wife and I, we found a way to like, okay, you get Mondays and Wednesdays, I get Tuesdays and Thursdays. Like I might work a little when the football game is on, I'll try. But like I give myself Saturdays. Like no work happens on Saturday. I go to church, I hang out with my son, hang out with my family. No. So what do you have? Do you have any like, all right,
My downtimes don't exist like that.
Mm,
There are things that I do, like, so my 16-year-old, he's playing football right now and they're in the playoffs. If I'm not at a show, I'm at his game. So will I be intangible of sorts? No, not really. Like, people can still tweet me, ask me questions, whatever. And if I get an idea, I will work on my phone. Like, I have no problems with setting up stuff, working on my phones. I think the quiet times is just when I'm asleep. I will
mm,
go until I'm tired. And when I'm tired, I'll go lay down because there's no sense in me trying to force it, because then you'll get wonky stuff that happens. But if I'm not tired, I'm working. I've got that Alexander Hamilton thing. Like, why are you working so much? Because I wanna. Like, this is what I do. This is my church. This is my happy space. When I'm in that
yeah,
creative zone and I get the opportunity to share what I've done with somebody else and go, you can do that too. That's my ministry. That's my
yeah,
way of reaching people and saying, like, I've been given this gift. This is what I'm doing with it. Find your gift. This is what you can do with it. Blah, blah, blah. Like, that's the stuff that keeps me motivated, puts the battery in my back, and
yeah.
I don't get tired. I've not been jaded by the industry. I've had my downs for sure, but
Right.
because this is such a pure, authentic place for me, it's the best thing in the world. Like, I can't.
Nah, I
I
feel
left a cushy state job to do this. Like,
really.
yes, yes, yeah.
And you doing well enough now that you feel like it's you
12 years full time this past October. Yeah,
that's amazing. So
thank you.
man, I need to talk to you on a personal level about some other stuff. Because
Anytime,
I've
anytime.
always said that I had like a 5-year plan that started 2 years ago. And then
Okay,
at the end of the 5-year plan, I want to be doing this full time.
got you, got you.
So I need to talk to you
Okay,
on some personal level
I got you.
about a transition there.
Ask
Well,
away.
my thing has always been, if I can make as much as I'm making now doing that,
Mhm.
then I'm out.
I got you. I
Bet.
got you.
Peace
I
out.
got you.
Let's do it. And that's kind of been that's the justification that I'm when it hits that I
Right.
give my wife. Like,
You're like,
listen,
we're not
honey,
losing any money whatsoever. Yeah, of
we're not losing no money. It's the same amount of money. It's
course.
just I'm doing this.
I'm
The
just doing
only
this
thing
over
for
here.
me has always been like the benefits part.
Right.
Like the
Benefits matter.
benefits, yeah.
The bennies matter. I'm
The
lucky. My
benefits is
partner,
where, yeah.
her benefits cover the day-to-day stuff. The benefit that I have in terms of being here all the time, and this is pre-pandemic, like, I was Mr. Mom. So, like, I'm at home and I have a tendency to want to work in a clean space. So I'm cleaning the house.
So you're cleaning
That's
up.
not a
Okay.
problem. Like, I'm doing that. The other benefit to me being here, if the kids are sick, if they're out of school, I'm here. So we don't have to pay for a sitter. We don't have to pay for daycare. I'm a hands-on dad. So I'm definitely going to be here. Like, not a problem. Like, they're sick, give them to me. I got you. They got to go to the doctor. I got them. Dentist appointment. I got them. Orthodontist. I got them. Like, we can still do all these things. And because the framework of what I do, because again, like you said, I'm just a writer, I can write anywhere and I will find a way to write anywhere. And the hard part will just be giving, finding the right collaborators that can work with what I'm doing,
Right.
and letting the benefits of working with me shine. Maybe it's not going to be dollars, but I can get you into a show and I can get you a table, and whatever money you make, you that's yours. And not only do you get the table, you can stay with me. So now you don't have to pay to stay there. So now it's an even more lucrative experience. And those people that I know, when we go out, I'll introduce you to this person, this person, this person. So now not only are you in a position to make money, have a book created, have money to, or extra money for your stay, but now I'm introducing you to more folks in the business. So working with me becomes this compound benefit of, yeah, now I'm rocking with Victor because look at this. Like, I get all of this.
Right.
Okay, cool. And he'll put me on game so that next time you don't have to go through me to get the table. You know who the director, the coordinator is, and they're on your radar. So you are talking, and that's how you get the table next time. Oh, Vic, I'm going to be at this show. Are you going to be there? Yeah, I'm going to be there. Cool.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I wish I was just a writer. Like, the art part, I think I'm just trying to, like, I personally would just want to monetize on another level.
I get that.
Outside, like, because like I talked to a couple of creators. I know we're going over, but I'm loving this. Whatever. You let me know when you got to go.
I got you.
Because I know a lot of creators, they're like, I don't do interiors anymore.
Right.
Not unless I absolutely want to. They're like, cover. They'll do like 100 covers, 150 covers in a year, and they'll be like, I made enough money. I made as much money. Actually, I made more money doing these 150 covers than, like that to me sounds like heaven. Like if I was only cracking covers out and making all that, and only doing interiors when I wanted to, that'd be amazing. But it's just about finding, but you still being able to keep the joy in it. Be like you said, you're not jaded.
Not jaded at all.
Like
I refuse to be jaded.
Like, yeah, it's because it can be easy to be jaded.
It can. The thing is it's when you forget that we have the best job in the world. We are literally playing with superheroes. We're playing with toys all the time. And when you remember that, you go, I don't have any reason to be mad. Like, I just find another person to play with. Like, that's, if that's what I got to do, that's what I got to do. Like, that's easy peasy. So, it's just finding those things.
Yeah, I told you I went through burnout with Heat. Once again, another pun. I went through burnout with him, like right when the pandemic hit.
Got you.
And I was like, I want to do something different. That's when I did Strong.
Right.
But then I've told the story before, but then I watched an image documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And Todd McFarlane was like, what I decided to do is make Spawn a household name, like put all my focus and energy into that and to make it the best. And I was like, man, that makes a lot of sense. So that's why now I that's why I'll do all that stuff to pace myself. Like I'm not doing all-nighters anymore. Like if I'm doing a page and I hit a point where I'm just like, I can't draw anymore, I'll stop. But then I will go do another part. Like I'll go ink or I'll go letter or I'll go flat.
You bounce around to keep you fresh. Yeah.
And frankly, to me, like my last book was a great example of me feeling like, okay, I'm not burned out. And this book coming out is going to be another feeling. Like, okay, now I'm not burned out. Like I got a nice rhythm, and I know it's so hard. I know for a lot of creators to find a rhythm.
Right.
And you feel like I got to put out a bunch of stuff.
You just got to be smart about how you do it. That's all. Just be smart. Just
like,
be smart.
It sounds great to put out like a book every month, but like if you talk to the people who in Marvel, they be having a hard time doing it.
Yeah, that's in the indie market. I say that's not sustainable if you're going about it from the same parameters of a corporate comic, because the truth is, a corporate comic can do that because they are financed in a position that gets that done. Like that's just what that is. So you only have to do this portion of that puzzle, and then there's somebody else that does this next portion. There's somebody else that does this other portion. So there's a number of people that the responsibilities are spread out. From an indie standpoint, now you're wearing a lot of hats, and so you shouldn't try to do that thing because you don't actually have this standing. Don't kill yourself trying to replicate a system that literally is 15 people strong and it's just you. That's crazy. Like, don't do that. Like, that would be ridiculous. There's nothing wrong with limiting how many pages you're aiming to do in a month. Like, but if you're telling good stories, people will rock with you. People get it. Like, set this up so that it is manageable for you and your audience. That's it.
Once I learned that if people like what you did, it didn't matter how long between books.
Will wait for you. They will wait.
I've told about my experiences this year at Terrificon and Fan Expo. People coming up to me and being like, "Oh my God, I was looking for you," and I was just like, "Yo, y'all have no idea how much energy y'all giving me to keep doing
brilliant.
this." Like I had a young woman who. And I'm doing this. I do this from every now and again. I forgot who it was, and it was like Tokyo-ish. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna talk my ish.
But then I'm gonna do it then.
Right. There was a young woman who read my book, who bought my book on Friday, came back on Saturday. Was like, I just have to tell you, you're a genius. And I was just like, I've never been called that.
Go ahead, give me that one. Give me that one.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that today. But it's just this understanding that if you market yourself well, if you're not a douchebag, and that's a big part because there's a lot of people who are douchebags in this industry. I'm not naming names, but like there are a lot of people who don't know how to talk to people.
Right.
If your product is good, it doesn't even have to be amazing, but like it just needs to be good. And
Yeah.
you're not a douchebag. They'll wait for you, and they'll be like, just let me know when the next one's coming out.
When's the next one? When's the next one? I need to know.
Dwayne Robinson Jr. It is the greatest feeling when somebody, it makes you feel like you're not just screaming in the wind, is what I call it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can be like we work in a very like in a bubble.
It's insular. It's super insular.
Yeah.
You don't know how people respond to what you're doing. You
don't know till you're done. That's the crazy
and even
part.
then you might not, right? Like, because I have the tendency that when I create something and I'm like, okay, that's done, then I move on to the next thing. I don't even wait to see what people's response is. I'm moving on to the next. That's its own little bit of insular. But like when you can get those roses, best thing in the world. Best thing.
Yeah, you got to hold on to the roses too, because those are the ones you keep during the bad times.
That's right. That's right.
You know what I mean? When like you got to just be like, listen, man, and like I'm gonna hold on to this. This is keep me warm at night. Like,
that's right. That's right.
This it's a hard industry. It's a hard industry to be in.
Right.
Well, but once you get in and you figure it out, like you said, yes, it makes all the hard work like worth it, because like I said, you don't know. You might sell a book to somebody and never know if they liked it.
True.
Like more times than not, you will never know.
You'll never hear from them, and
you'll never hear. And then
those times a year later, those times that you do hear, better than ever.
And it, and then it'll be like a year later, and they'll be like, "Oh, I loved your book," and I'm like, "Okay," and then they'll come and they'll buy everything else.
That's right. That's right.
But I'm gonna let you go, man. This was literally one of my most fun shows. We could talk. Do you wanna tell anybody what you got working on before we go?
Yes. Okay. So definitely, if you guys are interested in following on Patreon, please do. It is patreon.com/HWMIC, stands for Hardest Working Man in Comics. What that is all about right now is I am showcasing the process of which my creative ventures are taking me. And post New York Comic Con, things are about to jump in a crazy sort of way. I've got a major rebrand that's happening, and it's going to change the face of all the things that I do by tying everything together in a more associative sort of pattern. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see how this works. And I hope that it's a blueprint that other people can use, that when you have different ventures, different avenues, different enterprises, that you can put those together to work together and do cool things. I hope, like for you, Javon, I hope that in all of your books, there is an ad for your favorite episode at the time of printing, that you can put a QR code that people can go to your YouTube page. And not only are you making your book, but now you're promoting your YouTube channel. That's the way that this should go.
But it will be.
There you go. It's stuff like that. It's stuff like that. You're already started. You've got the Heat, shirt on, so that's already.
You saw this.
Of course, I can see it. I'm peeping. I'm peeping.
It's nothing.
It's nothing. But like that's a huge thing. Like everything that you do should feed into the next thing that you do, so that it keeps that people, when it gets into that funnel, it's all going to circle around right back into you. So that's going to be the journey that I'm going on right now. I just put up a promo for Wonders of the Weird and Beyond. It's a series that I'm doing with Seth DeMoose. It's going to be, again, a self-contained anthology series. So the first issue is going to have 4 individual character stories and then 1 major arc story that's going to carry through into the second issue. Actually, you want to put that back up. I just finished the pieces for this series. Wonder Care presents the Kindergartens. We've just finished up the production on our second trade paperback, Try a Little Kinderness, that was kickstarted back in August. I think we made over $7,000 on this one. So we're very, very happy with that. Literally sending that off to the printer tomorrow, and super excited about that one. And that wraps up our Wonder Care series. Who knows what the future of Wonder Care might hold? There could be some other media adaptations. I can't say like specifically, but there could be some things out there that are in the works. My series, Point of Authority, Family Ties, I'm doing with Adam Fields. Our issue 3, I've written the outline for the first part of the script he has, so we're going to get started on that soon. Never Too Late, number 3, the follow-up to The Trouble with Love. Harold Edge has been working on that. Cannot wait to have fun with that one. And then, of course, we've got the You Create line, which is about to take a huge leap forward with some of the things that we're offering to schools, educational institutions, all kinds of stuff. So it's about to be a very big year for Vantage In-House and all things that the hardest working man in comics does. So keep an eye out. Keep an eye out.
That's a lot, man. Now I'm over here like, all right, let me make up.
Nah, come on, man. Listen.
Let me make up some stuff. Yeah, we about to do Visually Stoked is about to do some bath towels.
Listen, hey, get it in there. Get it in there. But sincerely, like, if there is a way to tie your different brands together, you should absolutely.
No, that's a great idea. That's a great idea.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a funny thing is I did this podcast thing because I just wanted to talk to the creators and pick their brains. But like now I'm on trying to figure out to monetize and to bring it bigger. I had to do I did a master class in it and everything.
Okay.
So it's just like, I got tons of notes.
Listen, I'm gonna have to hit you up about that because we're coming back to you,
dude.
Soon.
I'll send it to you. Okay. I'll literally send you the document. Just you gotta remind me because
I got you.
My memory is awful.
Listen, it's because you got a lot of ideas in there. Okay, you got a lot of ideas.
Man, listen, but forget the ideas. It's the business part, man.
That
too.
Overwhelming.
But it's amazing to hear all the stuff you got going. I can't wait. Tell people where you at next.
Yes. Let's see. The next thing I'm doing, I'm actually doing a signing at Danny's shop, Fourth Wall Productions in Burlington, North Carolina. I reached out to him, was like, hey, let's do a workshop and a signing. And he's like, yeah. And I don't think that it's so funny. I don't think that Danny thought about doing that before until I asked him about doing it. And then I saw him asking, hey, who's in the area down here? And I think he got a bunch of responses from people. So I think that's going to open up a different lane for Danny, which is dope.
Awesome.
Let's see, Thanksgiving weekend, that'll be the 19th of November. Thanksgiving weekend, I will be at San Francisco's or Fan Expo San Francisco show, kicking it with those folks down there. And then the first weekend in December, GalaxyCon Columbus, I'll be here for that.
Trying to get there.
I'm gonna see what I can work for you. I'm gonna see what I can work.
Help me out, man. Anything I can do, man, because I've been that's the Stokes family.
I got you.
We from Dayton.
I got you.
Stokes.
Listen, you need to link up with Gym City. Jesse Noble, he runs a show. It's Gym City Comic Con. It's been around 16 years, I think, at this point. But yeah, Gym City Comic Con, Jesse Noble, he's one of my friends.
Where's that? Is that
Dayton.
It's
in Dayton? Yeah,
okay.
It's in Dayton. Yep.
Yeah, that's where my family stay.
Exactly. So there's a con right in your backyard.
I'm actually gonna. So it sucks that you're gonna be in San Francisco that weekend.
Are you gonna be? Of course.
I'm gonna be in Ohio.
Of course.
I'll be there from Thanksgiving until I think Tuesday.
Okay. I literally if you're here till Tuesday, I come back that Monday. So
hit me up.
I will hit you up.
I'll be here. I'll be here. Yeah, okay. I'm getting in. I gotta get my flight, but I'll be getting in on Thanksgiving.
Okay, yeah, I fly out on Thanksgiving, but I come back that Monday. So if you're still here by Tuesday, we will link up.
I mean, hopefully, we could work this GalaxyCon thing because then I'll
you'll be flying back.
I'm literally gonna fly back home because I'm bringing my son with me.
Turn around and be like, and I'm going.
I would have stayed if I didn't have my son. If I had my son, I would just stay. But I got to fly back, drop him off, and literally fly back. But I appreciate having you on, man. We got to have you on again. You just let me know when you got another project.
We'll
find time on the schedule.
We got lots.
And we'll make it happen, man. Thank you, everybody who rode with this. I'm pretty sure y'all were looking for us to argue some more, especially Danny.
We'll find something else to argue about.
Yeah. Hey, I keep telling people I don't argue. I debate.
There you go.
Arguing implies an emotional attachment to what I'm talking about. Debating, I could debate all day, and then
and we're done, and we're moving on to the next conversation.
Just move to the next thing. But thank you everybody for showing up.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Next week we have Roxy Zarak. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Roxy, who if you watch Top 5, she's been on there. I'm looking forward to talking to her about it. Of course, as always, go to visuallystoked.com and get this beautiful trade paperback. I promise you, it's beautiful. I'm gonna turn it on the back. Look at that. Look at that. Awesome.
There we go.
That's amazing. Get that trade paperback. And hopefully, y'all, if you in Columbus, you'll see me at GalaxyCon. I'm gonna keep speaking it into existence.
See what we can put together.
Because this man to my left, he know everybody.
I know some folks.
I'm hoping he can pull some strings.
Let's see what we can do.
And then
if not in Columbus, then we'll see about New Orleans.
If you know people from New Orleans, you holler at me. Hey, I'm trying to do that, man. I'm not joking. I'm trying to do that, and I just submitted to them a panel discussion. This is the description of the panel. And don't steal this.
I won't steal it.
If you steal it, I'm gonna got you. It's already sent, y'all. This is my idea. All right, is to do diversity in comics through the prism of how social media has expanded the industry of independent comics.
That's pretty good. I will put in a word with Mike G. He's the programming director for Fan Expo for that show. So I got you.
Yeah, like Ta'ala, because I'm trying to do that, and I'm trying to do Fan Expo in Philly too.
Okay.
I don't know if you're trying to do Philly, but
those are old Wizard World shows. So yes.
Okay, so I'm definitely trying to do Philly.
Okay.
And then I'll be doing Fan Expo Boston always.
Okay.
Fan Expo. You were there, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there. I know. I was brought in to moderate. So with the way that they had that set up, I was upstairs most of the time. Like I was hardly on the floor. I was upstairs in the panel area. So that was where
I'm never from my table. So like,
see, now that I know that,
here's it. Like I have to make a concentrated effort to leave my table and go walk around.
Right.
So like, but I don't leave to go like upstairs, and I don't do any panels.
Yeah, see, that was.
I don't go to any panels. I would love to do a panel if you're watching and you are in charge of a Comic-Con. I would love to do it. Clearly, I can interview people.
Let's talk to people.
I keep trying. I keep telling people. I'm like, hey, I'll do a panel all day.
It gets tough, man. It's a fun space, but keep pushing. Because
I'm a hustle.
It's a beautiful thing. Like the one time that I was specifically on the floor, I had 2 panels on the main stage. No, 3. I'm sorry, 3 on the main stage in Boston. One was with Billy Zabka and Martin Cove from Cobra Kai, and then Gina Carano, and then the Hobbits. So that was the only time I was like really on the floor. Everywhere else I was upstairs. So yeah,
I didn't even know it was upstairs, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and where I was on the floor was the opposite side of where you would have been in Artist Alley on the floor. I was on the other side where the main stage was. So totally did. Yeah.
No, I was near Frank Miller.
Right, that was on the other side of where the main stage was.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you're over there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely make this happen
for sure.
Once again, thank everybody for riding with us. This was fun, and we definitely do it again. And y'all have a great night and a great weekend.
Good night, everyone.